This ghetto trash doesn't belong in premium economy. The words, hissed under breath, but audible enough to cut through the ambient noise, would set in motion events that would reshape an entire airline's culture, words spoken carelessly that would end careers, transform policies, and send shockwaves through the aviation industry, all because someone underestimated a 9-year-old black girl and her aunt. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Our story begins on a Wednesday afternoon in the controlled chaos of O'Hare International Airport's Terminal 3, where Skylink Airlines occupies gates H1 through H22. The terminal buzzes with the symphony of modern travel, the percussive clicking of roller bags against tile, the soprano announcements echoing through public address systems, the baritone rumble of jet engines spooling up beyond glass windows. The air is a complex perfume of coffee, cinnamon pretzels, overpriced cologne from duty-free shops, and the faint metallic scent of recycled air. Dr. Maya Reynolds navigates this familiar landscape with practiced efficiency, one hand holding her leather messenger bag containing 3 medical journals and a tablet loaded with patient files she plans to review during the flight, the other hand gently guiding her 9-year-old niece, Amara Thompson. Maya's surgical scrubs have been replaced by comfortable but professional travel attire, dark jeans, a burgundy cashmere sweater, and low-heeled boots that could manage both a brisk walk through terminals and unexpected airport delays. "Auntie Maya, do you think we'll fly over mountains?" Amara asks, her voice pitched with excitement that's been building since they left Maya's Evanston townhouse 3 hours earlier. Maya smiles down at her niece, taking in Amara's bright eyes, her hair styled in 2 perfect puffs, secured with yellow elastics that match her favorite sweatshirt. "Absolutely, from the Rocky Mountains. They're spectacular from the air, like giant wrinkles in the earth with snow on top. I specifically chose seats on the left side of the plane so you can see them better." This trip has been planned for months. Maya's brother James Thompson, Amara's father, is in New York finalizing a major hospital acquisition that could revolutionize healthcare access across 3 states. As Chief Operations Officer of Skylink Airlines, James travels constantly. But this particular trip couldn't be rescheduled. When Amara's school announced an unexpected 4-day weekend for teacher development, James had called Maya in a mild panic. "The grandparents are expecting her in San Francisco. Maya, they haven't seen her in 7 months. I can't disappoint them again." But this merger at Ohio, Maya had cut him off. "James, I have 4 days between surgical rotations. I was planning to catch up on research, but I can do that anywhere. I'll take her." The relief in her brother's voice had been palpable. "You're a lifesaver, sis, literally and figuratively." Maya had approached the trip planning with the same precision she brings to the operating room. She'd booked Skylink Flight 437 from Chicago to San Francisco, departing at 2:15 p.m. and arriving at 4:52 p.m. Pacific Time. She'd paid the extra $68 per seat to secure 14A and 14B in premium economy, a window seat for Amara, and an aisle seat for herself. She'd reviewed the weather forecast for both departure and arrival cities, packed appropriate clothing for San Francisco's notoriously changeable climate, and downloaded a selection of Amara's favorite movies to her iPad. Now, as they approach Gate H17, Maya checks the large digital display. "On time" glows in reassuring blue letters beneath Skylink. 437 Chicago to San Francisco CFO. "Your dad texted while we were in security." Maya tells Amara, "He says Grandma and Grandpa have your room all ready with new space-themed bedding since you're so into astronomy lately." Amara's face lights up. "Do you think Grandpa will take us to the observatory again? Last time we could see the rings of Saturn." "I'm sure he will if you ask nicely," Maya says, guiding them toward 2 open seats at the gate. "We have about 40 minutes before they start boarding. Do you want to get a snack before we get on the plane?" Amara considers this with the seriousness of a child who understands that airport food decisions are not to be taken lightly. "Could we get those cinnamon pretzels? The ones with extra icing?" Maya nods, already calculating whether the sugar rush will coincide with takeoff or mid-flight. "Good choice. Let's drop our carry-ons at these seats and I'll go get them. Can you stay right here and watch our things?" "I'm 9, not 5, Amara says, with the slightly exasperated tone of a child frequently underestimated. "I know how to stay put." Maya smiles at the flash of independence, so reminiscent of her brother at that age. "You're absolutely right. I'll be right back. Don't talk to strangers." As Maya walks toward the pretzel kiosk, she observes the gate area filling with the usual pre-flight mixed business travelers tapping urgently on laptops, families corralling energetic children, solo travelers lost in headphones and e-readers. Gate agent Sophia Miller efficiently processes standby passengers. Her Skylink blue uniform crisp, her movements economical. Everything progresses with the practiced rhythm of thousands of similar scenes playing out daily across the country. When Maya returns with 2 cinnamon pretzels, icing on the side for herself, Amara is exactly where she left her. Now deeply engrossed in a book about the solar system, Maya hands her a pretzel and napkins, then checks their boarding passes on her phone one more time. Group 2, seats 14A and 14B, everything is in order. What's premium economy, Amara asks, noticing the designation on the boarding pass. It's between regular economy and first class. Maya explains. The seats are a little bigger, you get to board earlier, and they give you a real glass for your drinks instead of a plastic cup. Fancy, Amara says appreciatively, licking icing from her fingers. Maya uses a wet wipe to clean Amara's sticky hands, a pediatrician's habit that her niece tolerates with an eye roll. They settle into the wait. Maya reviewing patient notes on her tablet while Amara returns to her book, occasionally asking questions about how far various planets are from Earth. The gate area continues to fill. A family with twin toddlers sets up camp nearby, the parents already looking exhausted. An elderly couple in matching Skylink Airlines baseball caps arrange themselves carefully in priority seating. 3 businessmen in nearly identical suits stand near the window, discussing quarterly projections with performative loudness. At 1:35 p.m., gate agent Miller's voice comes through the speakers. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We will begin boarding Skylink Flight 437 to San Francisco in approximately 15 minutes. At this time, we invite passengers who need special assistance or additional time to board, along with active military personnel, to approach the gate. Maya begins gathering their belongings, tucking Amara's book into her backpack and checking that their boarding passes are easily accessible on her phone. She watches as passengers with mobility issues and young families make their way through the priority lane. We'll be boarding soon, she tells Amara. Do you need to use the restroom before we get on the plane? I went while you were getting pretzels, Amara says proudly. I asked the nice lady next to me to watch our stuff for 2 minutes. Maya smiles at her niece's resourcefulness. Good thinking. When Group 2 is called, Maya and Amara join the orderly line forming at the gate. Maya presents their mobile boarding passes to Sophia Miller, who scans them with a smile. Enjoy your flight to San Francisco, Miller says. It's beautiful weather there today. They make their way down the jet bridge, that liminal space between terminal and aircraft where the sounds shift from the open echoes of the airport to the muffled, contained acoustics of the narrow passage. The air changes too, cooler, with hints of jet fuel and the rubber meets metal scent unique to airports. At the aircraft door, they're greeted by Michael Perez, a flight attendant whose name tag identifies him as new to the job. His smile is eager. His uniform still has the stiffness of recent purchase. Welcome aboard, he says brightly. Seats 14A and 14B will be on your right, about halfway down the cabin. Maya guides Amara down the aisle of the Boeing 737-800, past the first-class cabin with its wide leather seats and pre-departure beverage service, through to the premium economy section where their row awaits. Overhead bins are already filling with roller bags and awkwardly shaped duty-free purchases. Here we are, Maya says, stopping at row 14. You go in first to the window seat. Amara slides in with the nimbleness of childhood, immediately pressing her face to the oval window where ground crew in bright vests maneuver luggage carts and refueling vehicles. Look at the wings, she exclaims. They're huge. Maya stows their bags in the overhead compartment, Amara's yellow backpack, and her own sleek leather messenger, before settling into 14B, the aisle seat. The premium economy seats are noticeably more comfortable than standard economy, with additional legroom and width that Maya's 5'8" frame appreciates. She helps Amara buckle her seatbelt, though the child hardly notices, entranced as she is by the activity outside her window. Remember how we talked about air pressure during takeoff? Maya asks. If your ears start to feel funny, try yawning or swallowing. I brought gum too, which helps. Amara nods, barely listening. Her attention focused on a luggage vehicle that looks like a tiny train without tracks. Maya smiles and takes out her phone to text James boarding now. Amara is thrilled with her window seat. We'll text when we land in SF. The response comes quickly. Thanks, sis. Give her a hug from me. Grandparents will meet you at arrivals. Let me know if you need anything. As the plane continues to fill, Maya observes the careful choreography of boarding, passengers finding seats, stowing bags, flight attendants assisting where needed. Jessica Rivera, a flight attendant with senior cabin crew on her name tag, moves efficiently through the cabin, helping an elderly passenger store a cumbersome carry-on. The plane gradually fills to about 80% capacity, with a few empty middle seats in standard economy, the modern traveler's equivalent of winning a minor lottery. Maya checks her watch, 2:05 p.m., 10 minutes until scheduled departure. Everything is proceeding exactly as planned. A smooth start to what should be a routine 5-hour flight to San Francisco. She has no way of knowing that in less than 15 minutes, this ordinary scene will transform into a crucible of discrimination, privilege, and ultimately, justice that will change not just their day, but an entire corporate culture. Section 2. Initial confrontation. Excuse me, but you're in our seats. The voice cuts through the pre-departure cabin chatter, sharp and entitled. Maya looks up to find a woman standing in the aisle, designer handbag hanging from one arm, the other hand gripping the shoulder of a boy about Amara's age. The woman, expensively maintained with highlighted blonde hair, a beige Burberry trench coat, and jewelry that catches the cabin lighting, is staring directly at them, her expression a mixture of annoyance and expectation. I don't believe so, Maya responds calmly, pulling out her phone. We're in 14A and 14B. I can show you our boarding passes. The woman, whose name Maya will later learn is Patricia Whitfield, doesn't even glance at the offered phone. Instead, her gaze shifts dismissively between Maya and Amara before settling back on Maya with the practiced superiority of someone accustomed to getting her way. There must be a mistake, Patricia says. My son Tyler always gets a window seat. He has anxiety. She delivers this last statement with emphasis, as though anxiety is a platinum card that grants immediate priority. Maya keeps her voice even and professional, the same tone she uses when explaining complex procedures to anxious parents. I understand anxiety can be difficult, but these are definitely our assigned seats. I specifically booked 14A for my niece months ago. Patricia's son Tyler, a stocky boy with his mother's blonde hair and an expensive-looking gaming device in his hands, huffs impatiently. Unlike the anxiety his mother invoked, he displays only entitlement and boredom. He hasn't looked up from his game, his thumbs moving rapidly across the screen. Mom, he whines, just make the move. I want to see out the window during takeoff. Several nearby passengers are now watching the interaction. A middle-aged man in 14C, across the aisle from Maya, glances up from his newspaper. A young woman in 15A, directly behind Amara, removes her earbuds. Patricia's expression hardens. Look, we're Diamond Medallion members. My husband flies over 100,000 miles annually with Skylink. We always get window seats in premium economy. She leans in slightly, lowering her voice. People who don't usually fly in this section might not understand how it works. The implication is clear, and Maya feels a familiar tightening in her chest, the controlled anger she's learned to manage throughout her career. She's encountered this particular strain of prejudice before the assumption that her presence in a premium space must be some kind of anomaly or mistake. As a Black woman in medicine, she's been mistaken for a nurse, an orderly, even a member of the janitorial staff, despite the white coat and credentials that identify her as Dr. Maya Reynolds, head of pediatric neurosurgery. Maya takes a slow, measured breath, the same technique she uses before making a critical incision. Miss Whitfield, Patricia Whitfield. The name is delivered with expectation of recognition. Ms. Whitfield, I understand your son prefers a window seat. However, I paid extra to reserve this specific seat for my niece 3 months ago. Our boarding passes clearly show we're in the correct seats. Maya's tone remains pleasant but firm. Perhaps the gate agent can help you find another window seat if one is available. Patricia's nostrils flare slightly. She glances around the cabin, noting that boarding is nearly complete. Most window seats are occupied. This is ridiculous, she says, loud enough for nearby rows to hear. Tyler needs the window. He gets carsick in other seats. This is a new justification, different from the anxiety claim moments earlier. Amara, who has been silently watching this exchange, shifts uncomfortably in her seat. Maya places a reassuring hand on her arm, feeling the child's tension. Auntie, Amara whispers, barely audible. Should I move? The vulnerability in her niece's voice ignites something protective in Maya. Her expression remains composed, but her voice takes on a firmer edge. No, Amara, this is your seat. We're not moving. She turns back to Patricia. I'm sorry, but we're staying in our assigned seats. I suggest you find a flight attendant to assist you. Patricia's face flushes with anger. Do you know who I am? My husband is... Mom, they're holding up the line. Tyler interrupts, his voice whiny but loud enough for others to hear. Just get a flight attendant to make them move. Behind Patricia, other passengers are indeed waiting to reach their seats. A businessman checks his watch pointedly. Patricia notices and uses it to her advantage. See, you're delaying the entire flight with your stubbornness. She raises her hand, snapping her fingers in the air. Flight attendant. The gesture, reminiscent of someone summoning a servant, causes several passengers to exchange uncomfortable glances. The man in 14C mutters something under his breath that sounds like unbelievable. Jessica Rivera approaches with the practiced smile of someone who has mediated countless seat disputes. How can I help? Patricia immediately launches into her narrative. These people are in our seats. My son needs the window seat for his anxiety and motion sickness. We're Diamond Medallion members and always get window seats in premium economy. Maya notices something subtle, but telling Jessica's eyes first go to Patricia, taking in the designer clothes, the jewelry, the polished appearance, and then to Maya and Amara, where they linger a half-second too long on their darker skin before returning to Patricia. It's a micro-expression, a momentary assessment and categorization that Maya has seen countless times. Let me see what we can do, Jessica says, her voice already tilting toward accommodating Patricia. She hasn't asked to see either party's boarding passes yet. Ma'am, perhaps you and your niece would be more comfortable in... Maya intervenes smoothly. Excuse me, but before we discuss moving anyone, could you please verify our seat assignments were in our correct seats, 14A and 14B? She holds up her phone, displaying both boarding passes. Jessica glances at the screen, but doesn't take the time to actually read the information. Yes, but we try to accommodate our Diamond members whenever possible. There are other window seats. In standard economy, I assume, Maya says, her voice still calm but with an edge of steel. We paid specifically for these premium economy seats. I selected 14A for my niece months ago. During this exchange, Patricia shifts her position, intentionally or not, causing her designer bag to swing into Amara. The girl flinches as the heavy bag bumps her shoulder. Sorry, Patricia says without sounding sorry at all. Space is tight here. The implication that Maya and Amara are somehow taking up too much space hangs in the air. Amara shrinks further into her seat, her earlier excitement dimmed. Maya feels a familiar burn of injustice, not for herself, but for her niece, whose joyful anticipation is being sullied by this unnecessary confrontation. Jessica looks increasingly uncomfortable, caught between company policy and Patricia's expectations. I understand both sides, but for the sake of on-time departure, Maya counters. Ms. Whitfield should take her assigned seats so the aisle can be cleared. Patricia's voice rises. This is outrageous. Do you know how much we spend with this airline annually? Tyler, emboldened by his mother's attitude, points directly at Amara. Why should she get the window anyway? She probably doesn't even know what she's looking at. Amara, who had been reading a book about the solar system minutes earlier and can name all 8 planets plus several dwarf planets, looks down at her lap, her small shoulders hunching. Maya feels her professional demeanor slipping. That's enough, she says firmly to Tyler. You don't speak about my niece that way. The confrontation has now drawn the attention of most nearby passengers. Some watch with discomfort, others with morbid fascination. A few have taken out their phones, sensing a social media moment in the making. Michael Perez, the junior flight attendant who greeted them at the door, approaches cautiously. Is everything okay here? Jessica. His gaze takes in the scene, lingering uncertainly on Maya's determined expression. These passengers are refusing to accommodate a Diamond member's request for a window seat for her son, Jessica explains, her framing of the situation instantly taking sides. The boy has anxiety and motion sickness. Michael glances at Maya and Amara, then at Patricia and Tyler. Something in his expression suggests discomfort with Jessica's characterization, but his junior status keeps him silent. Maya decides to shift strategies. May I speak with the purser, please? The request, using the correct aviation term for the lead flight attendant, catches Jessica off guard. The purser is busy with pre-departure checks. Then I'd like to speak with the captain. Maya counters, her voice level but insistent. Patricia scoffs. The captain over a seat assignment? That's absurd. What's absurd? Maya replies. Is that we're still having this conversation. We are in our assigned seats. We paid for these specific seats. There is no legitimate reason we should move. Jessica's smile has gone tight around the edges. Ma'am, we're trying to be accommodating. To whom? Maya interrupts. It seems very clear who you're trying to accommodate, and it's not the passengers in their correct seats. She pulls out her phone again. I'm documenting this interaction. Could you please state your full name and employee ID number? The request catches Jessica off guard. That's not necessary. It is to me, Maya says, her fingers moving across her phone screen. I'm making note of the time, 2:12 p.m., and the nature of this interaction. Patricia's expression shifts from entitled anger to something closer to uncertainty. She hadn't expected this level of resistance. Tyler pulls at his mother's sleeve. Mom, just find me another window seat. This is taking forever. But Patricia, now committed to this battle of wills, ignores him. You're making this so much more difficult than it needs to be. She tells Maya, it's just a seat. Your niece would probably be happier in another row anyway, away from all this tension. The slight pause before niece carries an insinuation that makes Maya's jaw tighten. The suggestion that Amara isn't actually related to her, a common assumption she and James have faced throughout Amara's life when caring for her in public, is both familiar and infuriating. Auntie, Amara whispers, her voice small. Is it because we're brown? The question, innocent and devastating in its clarity, is spoken softly, but in the momentary lull in cabin noise, it carries. Several nearby passengers inhale sharply. The woman in 15A, behind Amara, looks up sharply, her expression pained. Maya feels a surge of emotions, heartbreak, that her 9-year-old niece already recognizes the dynamics at play. Fierce protectiveness and cold, clinical anger at the situation. She squeezes Amara's hand. No, sweet girl, she says, loud enough for those nearby to hear. It's because some people never learn that rules apply to everyone, not just people who look like them. Patricia's face flushes crimson. How dare you imply, but I'm not implying anything. Maya interrupts, her voice steady. I'm stating facts. We are in our assigned seats. You want us to move because you believe your desires supersede our rights. The flight attendant is supporting that belief without even verifying our boarding passes. These are observable facts, not implications. Jessica, increasingly flustered, finally holds out her hand. May I see both boarding passes? Please. Maya displays her phone again, showing the mobile boarding passes for 14A and 14B under the names Amara Thompson and Maya Reynolds. Patricia reluctantly produces her own boarding passes from her designer handbag. Jessica examines them, and her expression shifts from certainty to confusion. Ms. Whitfield, your seats are actually 16C and 16D. Those are in premium economy, but they're not window seats. Patricia's eyes narrow. There must be some mistake. We always get window seats. Not today, it appears, Maya says quietly. Jessica, now caught in an awkward position of her own making, attempts to salvage the situation. Perhaps another passenger would be willing to switch. That won't be necessary, Maya interrupts firmly. Ms. Whitfield can take her assigned seats, which I'm sure are perfectly adequate. Tyler stamps his foot, a gesture that seems odd from a boy his age. This is stupid. I want the window. Tyler, Patricia says sharply, finally seeming to realize they've lost this particular battle. That's enough. The boy glares at Amara, who is still looking down at her lap. Whatever. This airline sucks anyway. Patricia straightens her already straight posture, gathering the remnants of her dignity. We'll be speaking to customer service about this. My husband is a very important client. I'm sure he is, Maya says evenly. And I'm sure customer service will be interested to hear how this situation was handled. Jessica, eager to end the confrontation, gestures toward the rear of the cabin. Ms. Whitfield, if you'll follow me to your seats. As Patricia and Tyler finally move away, Maya notices several passengers watching with expressions ranging from approval to discomfort. The woman behind Amara leans forward. That was handled beautifully, she says quietly to Maya. I'm Amanda. By the way, I recorded part of that interaction. If you need it. Maya smiles gratefully. Thank you. Amanda, I'm Maya. This is my niece Amara. The man across the aisle in 14C lowers his newspaper. Ridiculous behavior, he mutters, nodding toward where Patricia and Tyler have gone. Good for you for standing your ground. Amara slowly straightens in her seat, the tension gradually leaving her small shoulders as she realizes the confrontation is over. She looks up at Maya with a mixture of relief and admiration. You didn't let them bully us, she says softly. Maya squeezes her hand. No, I didn't, and neither did you. But as Amara turns back to her window, her earlier excitement somewhat restored. Maya can't shake a sense of disquiet. Jessica's instinctive siding with Patricia, the ease with which Amara was deemed less deserving of her seat, these were not anomalies in her experience, but patterns, painfully familiar ones. She checks her watch, 2:18 p.m. They should have pushed back from the gate 3 minutes ago. The cabin door is still open. Maya takes out her phone again and begins composing a detailed note, recording names, times, and exact quotes while they're fresh in her memory. Near the back of premium economy, she can see Patricia gesticulating to another flight attendant, clearly still unhappy with the resolution. Tyler has slouched into his assigned seat, absorbed once more in his gaming device. Maya sighs quietly. She had hoped this trip would be a joyful experience for Amara, her first flight in several years, an adventure with her aunt. Now it's been tainted by this unnecessary confrontation. She can only hope the rest of the journey will be smoother. She doesn't yet realize that the confrontation is far from over. It's merely moved into its next phase. And what began as a simple seating dispute, it is about to escalate into something far more serious, with consequences none of them can anticipate. Section 3, Escalation with Flight Crew. I need to speak with your supervisor immediately. Patricia Whitfield's voice carries from the back of the premium economy section. Where she stands in the aisle, one hand on her hip, the other clutching her phone, Jessica Rivera hovers nearby, her professional composure visibly strained. Maya notices but focuses on helping Amara get settled, arranging her book, headphones, and the small comfort blanket James had packed in her backpack. Are you okay? She asks softly. Amara nods, but her earlier enthusiasm has dimmed. She keeps glancing over her shoulder toward where Patricia stands complaining. Don't worry about them, Maya says reassuringly. They're just unhappy they didn't get their way. It happens to everyone sometimes. Not like that, Amara says with the simple wisdom of childhood. Mom says people who yell to get their way usually don't deserve it. Maya smiles at her niece's insight, a reflection of James and his wife Layla's thoughtful parenting. Your mom is very smart. The cabin announcement system crackles to life. Flight attendants, please prepare for departure. But instead of the expected movement toward closing the aircraft door, Maya sees Catherine Wilson, the lead purser, identifiable by her slightly different uniform and the authoritative way she carries herself, making her way down the aisle toward Patricia. Catherine is in her late 40s, with short auburn hair and the efficient movements of someone who has managed thousands of flights and the countless human dramas that unfold within aluminum tubes hurling through the atmosphere. Patricia immediately launches into what appears to be an intense conversation, gesturing repeatedly toward the front of the cabin where Maya and Amara sit. Catherine listens, her expression professionally neutral, occasionally nodding. Maya feels a prickle of unease. She's seen this dynamic before, the escalation to management, the one-sided account of events. She takes out her phone again, ostensibly checking messages, but actually opening the Notes app to continue documenting. Is that lady still trying to take my seat? Amara asked, her perception sharper than Maya had hoped. She might be. But don't worry, we're in our correct seats and we're not moving. Maya watches as Catherine and Patricia continue their discussion. Jessica has joined them, occasionally adding comments. None of them have approached Maya to hear her side of the story, a telling detail she notes in her phone. After several minutes, Catherine makes her way toward row 14, her expression set in what Maya recognizes as conflict resolution mode, a bland pleasantness that masks predetermined decisions. "Good afternoon," Catherine says, stopping at their row. "I understand there was some confusion about seating arrangements." Maya meets her gaze directly. "There was no confusion. We are in our assigned seats. The other passengers were not." Catherine's smile doesn't waver. "Yes, I've verified that with our system. However, we have a situation that I'm hoping you can help us resolve." "What kind of situation?" Maya asks, already sensing where this is headed. Catherine lowers her voice, adopting a conspiratorial tone, as if they're collaborators rather than adversaries. "Ms. Whitfield is a Diamond Medallion member, and her son is experiencing some anxiety about not having a window seat. Their original booking was supposed to include window seats, but there seems to have been a system error. In the interest of customer satisfaction and on-time departure, we're asking if you might be willing to accommodate a seat change." Maya notices several things at once: Catherine's immediate validation of Patricia's status, the assumption that the system error explanation would be accepted without evidence, and the subtle pressure applied through mentioning the flight's departure time, as if Maya and Amara, not Patricia's entitled behavior, are causing the delay. "What exactly are you proposing?" Maya asks, though she already knows. "We have two very comfortable seats in row 16 that you and your—" Catherine glances at Amara, hesitating slightly. "Your niece could move to same premium economy service, just a different location. Miss Whitfield and her son would take these seats instead." The hesitation before niece, the same one Patricia had used, sends a fresh wave of controlled anger through Maya. The repeated questioning of her relationship to Amara, however subtle, reveals underlying assumptions she's encountered throughout her life. "Let me be clear," Maya says, her voice calm but firm. "We are in our assigned seats, which I specifically selected and paid extra for 3 months ago. Ms. Whitfield is in the wrong seats and created this disruption. And now, instead of enforcing your own airline's policies, you're asking us to accommodate her inappropriate behavior." Catherine's smile tightens. "I understand your perspective, but in situations like this, we try to find solutions that work for everyone." "This isn't a solution that works for us," Maya replies estoico. "Amara has been looking forward to this window seat for weeks. She specifically wants to see the Rocky Mountains. Why should she give up what we properly paid for because another passenger didn't get what they wanted?" Catherine's eyes narrow slightly. "Ma'am, sometimes we need to consider the greater good. The flight is already delayed, and we're trying to minimize disruption for all passengers. The disruption was caused by Ms. Whitfield, not by us," Maya points out. "And it could have been resolved immediately if your flight attendant had simply verified our boarding passes at the start instead of automatically assuming we were in the wrong." Several nearby passengers are watching the exchange with interest. The woman behind them, Amanda, has her phone positioned in a way that suggests she's recording again. The man across the aisle is no longer pretending to read his newspaper. Catherine seems to realize she's losing control of the narrative. She leans in closer, lowering her voice further. "Look, I understand you're upset, but surely it's not worth causing such a scene. It's just a seat. After all, we could offer you a complimentary beverage service as compensation." The patronizing tone, the suggestion that Maya is being unreasonable, that her and Amara's rights are worth no more than a free soda, ignites something deeper in Maya. She straightens in her seat, meeting Catherine's gaze directly. "Catherine," she says, deliberately using the purser's name, "let me be exceptionally clear. We are not moving. We are in our correct seats. If Miss Whitfield is dissatisfied with her assigned seats, which, by your own admission, are also in premium economy, that is between her and Skylink Airlines. It is not our problem to solve." Catherine's professional facade cracks slightly. "Ma'am, I'm trying to be reasonable here." "No," Maya interrupts. "You're trying to take the path of least resistance. You're asking the passengers who followed the rules to accommodate the passengers who didn't, presumably because you perceive them as having more value to your airline. That's not reasonable. It's discriminatory." The word hangs in the air between them. Catherine's expression shifts from frustrated to concerned. That's a serious accusation. It is, Maya agrees, and I'm documenting this entire interaction for that very reason. She holds up her phone, where the Notes app displays a detailed timeline of events. Catherine straightens, reassessing the situation. She glances at Amara, who is watching the exchange with wide eyes, then back to Maya. Perhaps I should speak with the captain about this. That would be appropriate, Maya says. In the meantime, I suggest you inform Ms. Whitfield that she needs to take her assigned seats so this flight can depart. As Catherine walks away, Maya notices Michael, the junior flight attendant, watching from nearby. Unlike Jessica and Catherine, his expression suggests discomfort with how the situation is being handled. Maya makes a mental note of this. Potential allies are important in situations like this. Amara leans closer to Maya. Are we in trouble, Auntie? No, sweet girl. We haven't done anything wrong. Sometimes standing up for yourself can feel uncomfortable, but it's important. Amara nods, absorbing this. Mom says that too. She says we should never let people treat us badly just because they think they can. Your mom is right again, Maya says, squeezing her hand. Meanwhile, near the back of Premium Economy, Catherine appears to be updating Patricia on the situation. Patricia's body language, arms crossed, head shaking, suggests she's not satisfied with what she's hearing. Tyler is still absorbed in his game, seemingly indifferent to the drama his mother is perpetuating. Maya uses this moment to send a quick text to her brother Minor, issue with seating on flight. Handling it, we'll explain later. All good. She doesn't want to worry James unnecessarily, but she also wants to create a record of communication should things escalate further. The cabin announcement system activates again. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a slight delay in departure. We appreciate your patience and expect to be underway shortly. Several passengers sigh or check watches. The collective mood in the cabin shifts toward irritation, not specifically directed at anyone yet, but a generalized frustration with the delay. Catherine returns, this time accompanied by Jessica. Their expressions suggest a coordinated approach has been decided upon. Ms. Reynolds, Catherine begins, her tone now more formal. I've discussed the situation with the captain. He's concerned about the delay and has authorized me to offer you a travel voucher for $200 if you and your niece would be willing to change seats. The shift to bribery doesn't surprise Maya. She's anticipated each escalation, recognizing the playbook from countless previous encounters with authority figures attempting to manage difficult situations by placating those they perceive as having the most power or value. Our seats are not for sale, Maya responds calmly. Not for $200, not for any amount. As I've stated multiple times, we are in our assigned seats and we will remain here. Jessica steps forward, her demeanor now less accommodating and more stern. Ma'am, your refusal to cooperate is delaying the flight for everyone. At this point, it would be easier for all concerned if you would simply accept the reasonable accommodation we're offering. There it is again. Easier. The word that has justified countless injustices, large and small. The path of least resistance that invariably runs over the rights of those deemed least important. What would be easiest, Maya counters, is for Ms. Whitfield to accept her assigned seats so we can depart. The solution has been obvious from the beginning, but you've chosen to spend, she checks her watch, 17 minutes trying to move the passengers who are in the correct seats rather than enforcing your own policies. Jessica's expression hardens. Your attitude is not helping the situation. Neither is yours, Maya replies evenly. Particularly your immediate assumption that we were in the wrong without checking our boarding passes, and your continued pressure on us instead of on the passengers who created this problem. The confrontation has drawn the attention of most nearby passengers. Some are openly recording now, phones held up without pretense. The collective mood seems to be shifting from general irritation at the delay to specific attention on the unfolding drama. Catherine, sensing the changing dynamics, tries a different approach. Perhaps we're all getting a bit too emotional about this. Let's take a step back. I'm not emotional, Maya interjects, her voice still perfectly steady. I'm rational, logical, and standing firm on my consumer rights. You're the ones who seem to be making emotional decisions based on who you perceive as being more valuable to your airline. Catherine's face flushes slightly. That's not fair. Isn't it? Maya asks. You haven't once asked Mrs. Whitfield to accept her assigned seats. Instead, you've spent nearly 20 minutes trying to move us, offering bribes, suggesting we're being difficult, and implying we're causing problems for other passengers. Please explain to me how that's fair. Before Catherine can respond, Amanda speaks up from behind them. Excuse me. I've been watching this whole situation, and I have to say, I'm really uncomfortable with how these passengers are being treated. Catherine turns, clearly surprised by this intervention. Ma'am, we're handling a complex situation. It doesn't seem complex to me, Amanda says. They're in their assigned seats. The other woman isn't. Why are you pressuring them instead of her? The man in 14C joins in. I've been wondering the same thing. Seems pretty straightforward to me. Catherine's professional mask slips further. Please, this doesn't concern. Actually, says another passenger, a middle-aged woman a few rows ahead who has turned to watch. It concerns all of us since we're being delayed. And I'm curious why you're not enforcing your own seating assignments. The situation is shifting rapidly, the power dynamics realigning as more passengers engage. Maya remains calm, aware that maintaining her composure is crucial. Amara watches wide-eyed, witnessing a real-time lesson in standing up to injustice. Catherine and Jessica exchange glances, clearly reassessing their approach. Catherine straightens her uniform jacket, a nervous gesture that betrays her discomfort. I'll speak with Ms. Whitfield again, she says finally. Perhaps we can find another solution. As they walk away, Amanda leans forward again. I've got most of this recorded. That was textbook discrimination. Thank you, Maya says quietly. I appreciate the support. I'm actually an attorney, Amanda adds. Employment law, but I know enough to recognize when someone's rights are being violated. Let me give you my card, just in case. She passes a business card forward. Amanda Ramirez, Senior Counsel. Ramirez and Associates. Maya tucks it into her pocket with a grateful nod. The dynamic in the cabin has shifted perceptibly. What began as an isolated confrontation has become a collective awareness, with passengers throughout the premium economy section now invested in the outcome. Whispers travel back and forth. Occasional glances are directed toward both Maya and Patricia. Near the back of the section, Catherine appears to be having a more forceful conversation with Patricia, whose gestures have become increasingly animated. Tyler has finally looked up from his game, watching his mother with a mixture of embarrassment and fascination. Maya checks her watch again, 2:34 p.m. The flight is now 19 minutes delayed. She continues making notes on her phone, capturing each new development with clinical precision. Imara tugs gently at Maya's sleeve. Auntie, should I just let them have the seat? I don't want everyone to be mad. The question breaks Maya's heart. Here is her 9-year-old niece, willing to give up something she's been excited about for weeks, simply to keep the peace, already learning the painful lesson that sometimes surrender feels easier than standing up for oneself. Maya turns to her, speaking gently but firmly. Amara, listen to me. You did nothing wrong. This is your seat. You deserve to be excited about looking out this window. Never, ever think you should give up what's rightfully yours just because someone else is making a fuss. Amara considers this, then nods slowly. Okay, but why are they being so mean about it? Some people believe they deserve special treatment, Maya explains. And sometimes people in charge go along with that because it seems easier. But that doesn't make it right. Their conversation is interrupted as Catherine returns, now accompanied by both Jessica and Michael. The trio stops at their row, and Catherine's expression suggests she's arrived at a decision she expects to be final. Ms. Reynolds, she begins, her tone officiously formal. After consulting with the captain, we have a solution. We've located 2 seats in first class that Miss Whitfield and her son are willing to accept instead of these seats. Maya raises an eyebrow. So you're upgrading them to first class as a reward for their disruptive behavior. Catherine's smile is tight. We're resolving the situation in a way that allows us to depart. The captain is concerned about our connection times in San Francisco. I see, Maya says. And had you offered this solution 20 minutes ago, we could have already been in the air. Jessica steps forward. Ms. Whitfield is moving to first class as we speak. The matter is resolved. But as they turn to leave, Patricia appears in the aisle again, Tyler trailing behind her. Her face is flushed with victory and lingering anger. "I hope you're happy," she says to Maya, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "You've delayed an entire flight just to prove a point." Maya meets her gaze calmly. "Ms. Whitfield, I was sitting quietly in my assigned seat. You're the one who created this entire situation." Patricia scoffs. "Please, you could have just moved. It would have been so much easier for everyone." "Easier isn't always right," Maya replies. "And teaching my niece to stand up for herself is worth a bit of inconvenience." Patricia's eyes narrow. "You people always have to make everything so difficult." The phrase "you people" hangs in the air, its implication unmistakable. Several passengers inhale sharply. Amanda's phone is still recording. Catherine and Jessica exchange alarmed glances, suddenly aware that the situation has taken an explicitly problematic turn. "Ms. Whitfield," Catherine says hurriedly, "your seats in first class are ready. If you'll follow me." But Patricia isn't finished. She leans closer to Maya, her voice lower but still audible to nearby passengers. "Next time, know your place." Before Maya can respond, Tyler points at Amara. "Yeah, you should be sitting in the back anyway." "Tyler." Patricia grabs her son's arm, suddenly aware they've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. "That's enough." But the damage is done. The cabin has gone silent. The collective shock palpable. Catherine's face has drained of color. Jessica stands frozen, while Michael looks physically ill. Maya's expression remains composed, but her eyes have turned to steel. She looks directly at Catherine. "I want all of your names and employee ID numbers. Now. And I want the captain informed of exactly what was just said to my niece and me." Catherine nods jerkily. "Of course, I'll get the captain." As Catherine hurries toward the front of the aircraft, Jessica attempts damage control. "Ms. Whitfield, please proceed to first class immediately." Patricia, perhaps finally realizing the severity of what has transpired, pulls Tyler along without further comment. As they move toward first class, the whispers in the cabin grow louder. Several passengers are openly discussing what they just witnessed. The phrases "lawsuit" and "viral video" can be heard from multiple directions. Maya turns to Amara, who sits perfectly still, her small face a mask of hurt and confusion. "Amara, look at me." The child raises her eyes slowly. "What they said was wrong. Completely wrong. It says everything about who they are and nothing about who you are. Do you understand?" Amara nods, but tears have welled in her eyes. "Why would they say that? Auntie?" Maya takes a deep breath, searching for the right words to explain hatred to a 9-year-old who shouldn't have to understand it yet. Some people are taught bad ideas about others. They're taught to judge people by how they look instead of who they are. It's wrong and it's sad, and it's not your fault. She pulls Amara into a gentle hug, acutely aware of the eyes on them, but caring only about comforting her niece in this moment. "You are brilliant and beautiful and deserve every good thing in this world. Don't let anyone ever make you feel otherwise." As they embrace, Maya notices Michael hovering nearby, his expression troubled. Unlike Catherine and Jessica, he seems genuinely distressed by what has occurred. "I'm sorry, Espao," he says quietly. "That shouldn't have happened." Maya nods, acknowledging his comment without absolving him. His failure to intervene earlier makes him complicit, despite his apparent regret now. The cabin announcement system crackles. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Anderson speaking. We apologize for the delay. We're addressing a situation and should be underway shortly. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for departure." Maya continues holding Amara, whispering reassurances. The child gradually relaxes against her, the resilience of youth allowing her to recover her composure more quickly than most adults would. When she finally pulls back, she wipes her eyes and says, "I'm okay. Auntie, really, you're more than okay," Maya tells her. "You're extraordinary." Amanda leans forward again. "I have the whole thing," she says quietly. "Every word. If you want the video, just let me know." "Thank you, Fat," Maya says. "I appreciate that." The atmosphere in the cabin remains tense as the aircraft door finally closes. The standard safety demonstration proceeds, though few passengers seem to be paying attention. Many are still discussing what they witnessed, some openly speculating about the consequences Patricia might face. As the plane finally pushes back from the gate, 36 minutes behind schedule, Maya feels a complex mixture of emotions: anger at the blatant discrimination, pride in standing firm, heartbreak for Amar's lost innocence, and grim determination to ensure this incident doesn't go unaddressed. She sends another text to James before switching her phone to airplane mode. More significant issue than I thought. Patricia Whitfield in Sun made explicitly racist comments to us after being moved to first class. Flight crew handled poorly. We'll call when we land. The response comes just before her signal disappears. What are you and Amara? Okay. Call me the second you land. As the plane taxis toward the runway, Maya puts her arm around Amara, who has returned to looking out the window. Though with less enthusiasm than before, the excitement of her first flight in years has been tainted, a memory now marred by ugliness that should never have touched her. Maya makes a silent promise this incident will not go unaddressed, not just for Amara's sake, but for every passenger who has ever been made to feel less deserving of their rightful space. What she doesn't yet know is that the consequences of this confrontation will reach far beyond what anyone on the plane could imagine, and that the true turning point is still to come. Section 4, Amara's distress and Maya's strategy. Is it always like this when we travel? Amara's question comes 15 minutes after takeoff. As the seatbelt sign finally turns off with a gentle ding, she's been quiet since the plane left the ground. Her earlier excitement at the sensation of flight subdued by the residual tension of the confrontation. Maya turns from the passing clouds to study her niece's profile. The question carries weight beyond its simple words. It's asking about more than just this flight. No, sweet girl, Maya answers carefully. Most people are kind and reasonable. What happened today was unusual. Amara looks doubtful, tracing patterns on the window with her fingertip. But you weren't surprised. You knew exactly what to do. The observation is astute, reminding Maya again of her niece's perceptiveness. She considers how to answer honestly without burdening a 9-year-old with too much harsh reality. You're right, she acknowledges. I wasn't completely surprised because I've experienced similar situations before. Not exactly like this, but similar attitudes. Because we're brown, Amara says. It's not a question this time, but a statement of understanding. Maya feels a tightness in her chest. This is a conversation she'd hoped would come later in Amara's life, though she and James have discussed how important it is not to shield her completely from the realities she'll face. Finding the balance between protection and preparation is one of the hardest parts of raising a black child in America. Partly, she admits, meeting Amara's eyes directly. Some people make assumptions based on how we look. They think they know who we are or what we deserve without knowing anything about us. Like that lady thought we wouldn't have good seats. Exactly like that. Amara frowns, turning this information over in her mind. Her brow furrows in the same way James's does when he's processing complex information. But that's really stupid. Despite the gravity of the conversation, Maya smiles. Yes, it is. Judging people by their appearance instead of their character is one of the most illogical things humans do. As a scientist, I find it particularly absurd. Is that why you were so calm, even when they were being mean? Maya nods. Partly. I've learned that staying calm and focused is usually the most effective way to handle these situations. It's like in the operating room, when something unexpected happens. Getting emotional doesn't help. Clear thinking does. Amara seems to take comfort in this analytical approach. So you were being a doctor even though you weren't doing surgery. In a way, well, yes, I was diagnosing the situation and applying the appropriate treatment, which in this case was standing firm and documenting everything. Like collecting evidence? Exactly like collecting evidence. Maya pulls out her phone, now in airplane mode, and shows Amara the detailed notes she's been taking. Seat times, names, exactly what was said. It's like taking careful notes during a patient's examination. Amara studies the screen with interest. So we can prove what happened. Yes, because unfortunately, sometimes people don't believe us when we tell them about these experiences. Evidence helps. As they talk, Maya notices Michael making his way down the aisle with the beverage cart. Unlike earlier, he now seems to be deliberately avoiding eye contact. Catherine and Jessica are nowhere to be seen, presumably serving the first-class cabin where Patricia and Tyler have been upgraded. Would either of you like something to drink? Michael asks when he reaches their row. his voice professionally pleasant, but his eyes fixed on his beverage cart rather than meeting their gaze. Apple juice, please, Amara says. Water for me? Maya adds. No ice. Michael serves their drinks with careful movements, still avoiding direct eye contact. As he's about to move on, Maya speaks. Michael, may I ask you something? He hesitates, then finally looks at her. Yes, ma'am. Where is the purser I'd like to speak with her? Michael shifts uncomfortably. Ms. Wilson is currently in first class. I can let her know you'd like to see her. Please do, Maya says. And I'd like to request an incident report form. Michael looks surprised. An incident report? Yes. I believe most airlines have standard forms for documenting unusual occurrences during flights. I'd like to officially record what happened before boarding. I'll have to check with Ms. Wilson about that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Maya's tone is polite but firm. As Michael continues down the aisle, Amanda leans forward from the row behind. Smart move asking for an incident report. Creates an official record they can't ignore. Maya nods. Exactly. And if they refuse to provide one, that's another issue to document. I've transferred the videos to cloud storage, Amanda adds. Just in case, I can send you the links when we land. I appreciate that, Maya says. She turns back to Amara, who is sipping her apple juice while watching this exchange with interest. See evidence and allies. Both are important. Amara considers this, then asks, Are you going to tell Dad? Yes, I sent him a quick text before takeoff, and I'll call him when we land. He's going to be really mad. Maya smiles slightly. Probably. Your dad is very protective of you, though, but he'll handle it appropriately. Will he sue them? Amara asks with the directness of childhood. That's one possibility, but there are other ways to address what happened. The most important thing is making sure the airline acknowledges the problem and takes steps to prevent it from happening to other passengers. Maya checks her watch just after 3 p.m. Chicago time. They've been in the air about 30 minutes, with approximately 4.5 hours remaining in their flight. She uses this quiet moment to add to her notes, recording additional details while they're fresh in her memory. She's particularly careful to document exact quotes, especially Patricia's "you people" comment and Tyler's remark about sitting in the back. While she's writing, David Rodriguez, the businessman in 14C who had supported them earlier, leans across the aisle. Excuse me, he says quietly. I hope I'm not intruding, but I wanted to give you my card as well. I'm an attorney, and I witnessed the entire exchange. What happened was completely unacceptable. Maya accepts his business card, David Rodriguez, Corporate Counsel, Mendoza International. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. I appreciate your support. Please call me David, and it's the least I can do. That flight attendant's immediate assumption that you were in the wrong seats. He shakes his head, his expression genuinely troubled. Textbook implicit bias, and the later comments were explicit discrimination. Frankly, it was appalling. Unfortunately, and not unfamiliar. Maya says. David nods grimly. I understand, Bayada. My parents experienced similar treatment throughout their lives. It shouldn't still be happening in 2025, but here we are. He glances at Amara Bashaya, who is listening intently. Your niece handled herself with remarkable poise. Thank you, Amara says, sitting a little straighter at the compliment. My contact information is on the card. David continues. Feel free to reach out if you need a witness statement or any other assistance. I took some photos and notes as well. I appreciate that. David, I'm Maya Reynolds, and this is my niece, Amara Thompson. As David returns to his seat, Maya notices that several other passengers in nearby rows are watching their interaction with interest. The confrontation has created an unusual dynamic in the cabin, a sense of collective witnessing and, for some, solidarity. It's a reminder that while discrimination often isolates its targets, it can also create unexpected alliances. After about 20 minutes, Catherine Wilson finally appears from the first-class cabin. She approaches their row with visible reluctance, her professional mask firmly in place, but strain evident around her eyes. Ms. Reynolds, Michael mentioned you wanted to speak with me. Yes, Maya says. I'd like an incident report form. Please. Catherine's expression tightens. We typically handle incident reporting through our customer relations department after the flight. I'm aware that Skylink, like most airlines, has standard forms for documenting incidents during flights. Maya interrupts calmly. I'd like one now, please. While the details are fresh, Catherine hesitates, clearly weighing her options. I can provide you with information about how to submit a complaint. That's not what I asked for, Maya says, her voice still even, but with an edge of steel. I specifically requested an incident report form, which I know exists. Your reluctance to provide it is concerning and will be noted in my documentation. Several nearby passengers are watching this exchange with interest. Catherine seems to realize she's in a no-win situation. I'll see what I can find, she says finally, her tone clipped. As Catherine walks away, Amara looks at Maya with admiration. You know exactly what to ask for. When you've experienced these situations before, you learn the systems and processes. Maya explains. Knowledge is power. Amara, always remember that. Amanda leans forward again. She's definitely going to try to downplay this. The airline will want to handle it as a simple customer satisfaction issue rather than discrimination. I'm well aware, Maya says. That's why documentation is so important. They can't minimize what's clearly recorded. She checks her phone again, reviewing her notes and adding Catherine's reluctance to provide an incident form. Maya's approach is methodical, the same careful, evidence-based process she applies to complex medical cases. Gather data, document precisely, analyze patterns, identify root causes, develop intervention strategies. Amara has returned to looking out the window, though with less enthusiasm than before. The plane is crossing over the western edge of Minnesota now, fields and lakes spreading out below them in a patchwork of browns and blues. In a parallel universe, one where this flight proceeded without incident, she would be excitedly pointing out landmarks and asking questions about cloud formations. The contrast between that imagined journey and their current reality creates a dull ache in Maya's chest. What are those? Amara asks suddenly, pointing to a cluster of circular patterns visible on the landscape below. Maya leans over to look. Those are center pivot irrigation systems. Farmers use them to water their crops in a circular pattern. That's why they look like giant green circles from up here. Cool, Amara says, her natural curiosity momentarily overriding the tension of the past hour. Maya seizes this opportunity to redirect their experience. What else can you see down there? For the next several minutes, they focus on the landscape passing beneath them, rivers winding like silver ribbons, tiny towns appearing as geometric clusters of buildings, highways stretching like ruler straight lines across the plains. This brief respite allows Amara to reclaim some of the wonder that should have defined her first flight in years. Eventually, Catherine returns with a single sheet of paper. This is our customer experience report form, she says, handing it to Maya. You can document your concerns here. Maya examines the form, a generic customer feedback sheet rather than the official incident report she requested. This isn't an incident report form, she says. This is a customer comment card. It's the appropriate channel for your feedback, Catherine insists. Miss Wilson, we both know Skylink has specific forms for documenting incidents like discrimination, harassment, or safety concerns. This form, she holds up the paper, is designed for complaints about cold food or uncomfortable seats. What happened today was far more serious. Catherine's professional veneer cracks slightly. Ms. Reynolds, I'm trying to work with you here. No, Maya interrupts calmly. You're trying to minimize a serious incident of discrimination that occurred on your aircraft, witnessed by multiple passengers, some of whom recorded it. Let me be clear, you will be filing a formal complaint with Skylink's corporate offices, the Department of Transportation's Office of Civil Rights, and potentially pursuing legal action. Providing the incorrect form doesn't change that reality. Catherine pales slightly. I'll check again for the other form. Thank you, Maya says. I appreciate your cooperation. As Catherine leaves again, David leans across the aisle. Textbook deflection attempt, he comments quietly. They'll try to keep this as informal as possible to avoid creating an official record. I'm familiar with the strategy. Maya responds. Amara has been watching this exchange with intense focus. Why is she trying to give you the wrong form, she asks when Catherine is out of earshot. It's a way of making the problem seem smaller than it is. Maya explains. If we use that general feedback form, it goes into the same system as complaints about uncomfortable seats or cold coffee. What happened to us deserves more serious attention. Amara nods, processing this. So you're making sure they can't pretend it didn't happen. Exactly, Bien, Maya says, impressed by her niece's understanding. Or pretend it was less serious than it was. While they wait for Catherine to return, Maya continues documenting each new development. She's creating a comprehensive timeline, a habit formed through years of medical training, where precise chronology can be crucial to understanding complex cases. After about 15 minutes, Michael returns instead of Catherine. Ms. Wilson asked me to inform you that she's located the appropriate form and will bring it shortly. She's currently addressing another matter in first class. Maya nods, not entirely surprised by the delay tactic. Thank you, Michael. While you're here, I'd like your employee ID number for my records. Michael hesitates, then provides it. Unlike Catherine and Jessica, he seems genuinely uncomfortable with the situation rather than defensive. Ms. Reynolds, he says quietly, fidgeting with the cuff of his uniform sleeve. I want to apologize for not speaking up earlier. I should have verified your boarding passes immediately when the issue first arose. The apology is unexpected, but appreciated. Thank you, Michael. I recognize you were in a difficult position as the junior crew member. That's no excuse, he says, showing more integrity than his senior colleagues have demonstrated. What happened wasn't right. After Michael continues his service duties, Amara turns to Maya. He seems nice, not like the other ones. Yes, Maya agrees. He made a mistake by not speaking up sooner, but at least he's acknowledging it now. That's an important first step. First step to what? To doing better next time, Maya explains. When we recognize our mistakes and take responsibility for them, we can change our behavior going forward. Amara considers this. Do you think the mean lady will ever say sorry? I don't know, Maya answers honestly. Some people find it very difficult to admit when they're wrong, especially when their behavior reveals biases they might not want to acknowledge. That's sad, Amara says simply. Yes, it is, Maya agrees. Because we all make mistakes. The difference is in how we respond to them. Nearly 30 minutes pass before Catherine finally returns with a different form. This one clearly labeled Incident Report at the top. Here's the form you requested, she says, her tone professionally detached. Please complete it and return it to a flight attendant before landing. Thank you, Maya says. Accepting the form, I'll need copies of both my completed form and the aircraft's journey log entry for this incident. Catherine's expression tightens again. The journey log is an official aircraft document, and passengers involved in documented incidents are entitled to copies of relevant entries. Maya finishes for her. I'm familiar with aviation regulations. Ms. Wilson. For a moment, Catherine seems about to argue, but then apparently thinks better of it. I'll see what the captain says. As Catherine walks away again, David leans over once more. Impressive. Most passengers don't know they can request journey log copies. I have a cousin who's a commercial pilot, Maya explains. She's given me some useful insights over the years. Maya begins filling out the incident report methodically, referring to her phone notes to ensure accuracy in times and exact quotations. The form has sections for describing the incident, identifying involved parties, listing witnesses, and documenting any resolution attempts. She completes each section with the same careful precision she brings to patient charts, aware that clarity and objectivity will strengthen her case. While she's writing, Amara alternates between looking out the window and watching Maya work. Occasionally, she asks questions about what Maya is writing or points out interesting features in the landscape below. Despite the circumstances, she's demonstrating remarkable resilience, a quality Maya has always admired in her niece. Auntie Maya, Amara says after a while, leaning against Maya's shoulder. I'm glad you're a doctor. Maya looks up from the form. Oh, why is that particularly relevant right now? Because doctors know how to stay calm in emergencies and fix problems, Amara explains. She adds with a small smile, and you have really neat handwriting. The observation linking Maya's professional training to her handling of this situation, with the charmingly childlike addition about handwriting, brings a genuine smile to Maya's face for the first time since the confrontation began. Thank you, Amara. That's very perceptive. As Maya completes the form, she notices increasing activity in the first-class cabin. Flight attendants seem to be moving back and forth with unusual frequency, and there's a subtle but perceptible tension in their movements. She can't see Patricia or Tyler from her seat, but something is clearly happening in that section of the plane. Maya hands the completed incident report to Michael when he passes by again. I'll make sure Ms. Wilson gets this, he promises, and for what it's worth, I've documented my perspective in the crew report as well. This confirmation that Michael has independently recorded his observations is significant. Another piece of evidence that will be harder for the airline to dismiss. About an hour into the flight, Jessica appears in their aisle, looking distinctly uncomfortable. Miss Reynolds, she begins stiffly, the captain asks if you would be willing to accept his apologies for the incident that occurred before departure. Maya regards her steadily. I appreciate the captain's sentiment, but an apology delivered secondhand doesn't address the underlying issues. I'd be happy to speak with him directly after we land. Jessica shifts uncomfortably. He's required to remain in the cockpit during the flight. I'm aware of flight deck protocols, Maya interrupts calmly. I was suggesting a conversation after landing, not during the flight. I'll inform him of your response, Jessica says before retreating toward the front of the aircraft. Amanda leans forward again. They're getting nervous. Word has probably reached someone higher up in the company about what happened. Likely, Maya agrees. The fact that multiple passengers were recording would concern any airline's legal department. As they cross into the airspace above the Dakotas, the pilot announces that they're experiencing some turbulence and illuminates the seatbelt sign. The plane begins to bounce slightly, and Amara grips Maya's hand. It's just air currents, Maya explains reassuringly. Like driving over a bumpy road, the plane is designed to handle it. Amara nods but keeps hold of Maya's hand. Despite her earlier bravery, she's still a 9-year-old experiencing her first significant turbulence. Maya is grateful for this moment of normal childhood anxiety, a welcome change from the adult concerns that have dominated their journey so far. The turbulence continues for about 20 minutes, during which cabin service is suspended and the flight attendants remain seated. When it finally subsides, there's a collective release of tension throughout the cabin. As the flight progresses into its second hour, Maya notices a subtle shift in how the crew interacts with them. Where before there was defensiveness and minimal engagement, now there's almost excessive attentiveness. Michael brings them extra snacks without being asked. Jessica offers Amara a special pilot's wing pin, typically reserved for first-time flyers. Catherine checks in to make sure they're comfortable. This change in behavior suggests internal communications have occurred, and someone has directed the crew to make amends. Maya accepts their attentions politely, but remains measured in her responses, understanding that customer service gestures don't equate to accountability. They're trying to make us feel better, Amara observes perceptively after Jessica has brought her a second round of apple juice. Yes, they are, Maya confirms, which isn't a bad thing in itself, but it doesn't change what happened earlier. It's like when Tyler breaks something at school and then tries to be extra nice to the teacher afterward, Amara says, drawing a parallel that makes Maya smile despite herself. That's a pretty good analogy, she agrees. As the plane begins its gradual descent toward the Rocky Mountains, the majestic ranges Amara had been most excited to see, Maya notices increased activity again in the first-class cabin. Catherine has been summoned forward twice in the past 15 minutes, and her expression upon returning suggests some ongoing situation. Look, Amara, Maya says, directing her niece's attention to the window. Those are the Rocky Mountains up ahead. Amara presses her face to the window, her earlier wonder temporarily restored. They're huge and there's snow on top even though it's not winter. The peaks are so high that they have snow year-round, Maya explains, grateful for this moment of genuine excitement. As Amara marvels at the mountain range passing beneath them, Maya checks her watch approximately 2 hours remaining in their flight. She updates her notes, adding details about the crew's changed behavior and her suspicions about communications occurring behind the scenes. What she doesn't yet realize is that events are unfolding that will transform this already significant incident into something much larger. The turning point she's been methodically documenting is about to be eclipsed by an even more dramatic revelation, one that will reshape not just their journey, but potentially an entire airline's approach to passenger treatment. Section 5, attempted forced removal. Ma'am, I need to speak with you privately. The words come from Officer Brian Martinez, who stands in the aisle beside row 14. His airport security uniform crisp, his expression professionally neutral. The plane has been in the air for just over 2 hours, cruising at 36,000 feet somewhere over eastern Wyoming. Maya looks up from her tablet, where she's been reviewing patient files as a way to maintain normalcy for Amara's sake. What is this regarding? Officer Martinez glances meaningfully at Amara, then back to Maya. It would be better to discuss this in private. My niece stays with me, Maya says firmly. Whatever needs to be discussed can be said here. Martinez shifts uncomfortably, aware of the attention they're drawing from nearby passengers. Ma'am, I've been informed of a situation that occurred before takeoff. The purser has requested security assistance. Maya raises an eyebrow. A situation, you mean the documented incident of discrimination that I've already reported through official channels? I've been told there was a seating dispute that escalated inappropriately, Martinez says, his phrasing deliberately vague. As the air marshal assigned to this flight, I need to assess whether further intervention is necessary. The revelation that Martinez is an air marshal rather than the standard airport security shifts the dynamic significantly. Maya hadn't realized he was already on the flight during the pre-boarding confrontation. Officer Martinez, she says calmly, I'm happy to discuss what occurred, but I'm concerned about the characterization you've been given. This wasn't simply a seating dispute. It was a clear case of discrimination by both another passenger and several crew members, culminating in explicitly racist comments directed at my niece and me. Martinez's expression remains carefully neutral. I understand that's your perspective. It's not just my perspective, Maya interrupts. It's documented in an official incident report, witnessed by multiple passengers, and recorded on video by at least 3 different people that I'm aware of. This information gives Martinez pause. His gaze sweeps the nearby rows, noting Amanda behind them and David across the aisle, both of whom are watching the interaction closely. Nevertheless, he continues, the purser has expressed concerns about ongoing tension in the cabin. As a security matter, I need to assess the situation. Maya's eyes narrow slightly. What exactly did Miss Wilson tell you, Officer Martinez? That's confidential information. Was it that I refused to give up my niece's assigned seat when another passenger demanded it, or that I documented the discriminatory treatment we received, or perhaps that I requested the appropriate incident report form rather than accepting a generic comment card? Martinez shifts his weight again, his discomfort becoming more evident. Ma'am, I'm not here to debate the details. I'm simply following protocol. Which protocol specifically requires you to approach the victims of discrimination rather than the perpetrators? Maya asks. Because Ms. Whitfield and her son are sitting in first class after making explicitly racist remarks, while you're here questioning us. The pointed observation lands with visible impact. Several nearby passengers murmur in agreement. Martinez glances toward the front of the plane, then back to Maya. I've been asked to escort you to the front galley for a discussion with the purser and captain. He finally admits. No, Maya says simply. Martinez blinks, clearly not expecting such direct refusal. Excuse me? I said no. We are not being separated from witnesses, nor are we leaving our assigned seats. If the purser or captain wishes to speak with us, they can do so here. Amara watches this exchange with wide eyes, her hand finding Maya's for reassurance. Maya gives it a gentle squeeze, projecting calm confidence despite the escalating situation. Ma'am, refusing to comply with crew member instructions is only an offense when those instructions are lawful and related to safety. Maya completes for him. Asking passengers who have been subjected to documented discrimination to leave their assigned seats for questioning is neither. I'm a medical doctor. Officer Martinez, I understand protocols and chain of command. What's happening right now is an attempt to intimidate us, and I'm not allowing it. Martinez's professional facade cracks slightly, revealing uncertainty. This interaction clearly isn't proceeding as he anticipated. Amanda speaks up from the row behind. I'm an attorney, officer, and I witnessed the entire incident. What Dr. Reynolds is saying is accurate. The crew's behavior has been questionable at best and potentially actionable at worst. David joins in from across the aisle. I'm also an attorney, and I concur. This approach to the situation is inappropriate and concerning. Martinez finds himself in an increasingly untenable position. What he likely expected to be a routine exercise of authority has become a standoff witnessed by multiple legal professionals. I'll inform the purser of your concerns, he says finally. But this matter isn't resolved. No, it isn't, Maya agrees, though not for the reasons you seem to believe. As Martinez retreats toward the front of the aircraft, Maya turns to Amara. Are you okay? Amara nods, her expression serious beyond her years. He wasn't very nice either. He was doing his job, Maya explains, but not very well. He only heard one side of the story before approaching us. That's not fair, Amara observes simply. No, it isn't, Maya agrees, which is why documentation is so important. She adds this new development to her notes, recording the time, Martinez's exact words, and the nature of his approach. The pattern is becoming clearer with each interaction, a systematic attempt to minimize the incident, isolate them from witnesses, and potentially intimidate them into dropping the matter. Amanda leans forward again. They're escalating because they're worried. That's actually a good sign. It means someone in authority is taking this seriously. Possibly, Sir, Maya agrees, though their approach leaves much to be desired. What do you think will happen next? Amara asks, a hint of worry creeping into her voice. Most likely, they'll try a different approach. Maya explains, but remember, we haven't done anything wrong. We're simply standing up for our rights. Less than 10 minutes later, Catherine Wilson returns, this time accompanied by a man in a pilot's uniform, not the captain, based on his stripes, but likely the first officer. Ms. Reynolds, Catherine begins, her tone noticeably more formal than before. This is First Officer Parker. He'd like to speak with you regarding the situation. Parker, a man in his mid-40s with salt and pepper hair and a carefully neutral expression, nods respectfully. Dr. Reynolds, I understand there was an unfortunate incident before takeoff. Captain Anderson asked me to express his regrets and to see if there's anything we can do to improve your experience for the remainder of the flight. This change in approach, acknowledging her professional title and offering an olive branch rather than making demands, represents a significant shift in strategy. Maya recognizes it as the good cop routine after Martinez's bad cop approach. I appreciate the sentiment, First Officer Parker, she responds evenly. However, what occurred wasn't simply unfortunate. It was discriminatory treatment by both a fellow passenger and several crew members, culminating in explicitly racist remarks directed at a 9-year-old child. Parker winces slightly. I understand, and that's completely unacceptable. I want to assure you that Skylink does not condone such behavior. The captain has been briefed on the situation and wants to make sure you know this is being taken seriously. Actions speak louder than words, Maya points out. Ms. Whitfield and her son were upgraded to first class after their behavior, while we've been questioned by an air marshal. That doesn't suggest the situation is being taken seriously. Parker and Catherine exchange glances. The seating arrangement was an attempt to defuse the situation, Catherine explains, though her tone lacks conviction. By rewarding inappropriate behavior, Maya counters. What message does that send to my niece? That if you're loud enough and entitled enough, you get upgraded. Parker shifts uncomfortably. I understand your perspective. What can we do at this point to address your concerns? First, I'd like confirmation that my incident report will be properly filed, not conveniently lost. Second, I want the captain's acknowledgement of this incident in the journey log. Third, I expect a follow-up from Skylink's corporate offices within 48 hours of landing. Parker nods. Those seem like reasonable requests. I'll convey them to the captain. One more thing, Maya adds. I'd like to know why Officer Martinez was sent to intimidate us rather than address the actual perpetrators of discrimination. Catherine's expression tightens. That wasn't the intention. Intent doesn't change impact. Maya interrupts. The impact was an attempt to intimidate and isolate us from witnesses. I'll discuss this with the captain as well, Parker promises. And for what it's worth, I personally apologize for any additional distress this has caused. As they turn to leave, Maya asks, First Officer Parker, may I have your full name for my records? Kevin Parker. He responds without hesitation. Thank you for your time. First Officer Parker. After they depart, Amara looks at Maya with a mixture of confusion and admiration. They're being nicer now. Why? Because they're realizing the seriousness of the situation. Maya explains. And possibly because someone higher up in the company has been informed about what happened. The good cop, bad cop routine was pretty transparent, Amanda comments from behind them. They're definitely in damage control mode now. Agreed, Martin, Maya says. Though I'm concerned about what prompted Officer Martinez's approach in the first place, that suggests Catherine or someone else portrayed us as the problem, not the victims. Classic deflection strategy, David adds from across the aisle. Reframe the victims as troublemakers to shift focus from the original offense. Maya adds this latest development to her notes, including Parker's more conciliatory approach in the contrast with Martinez's earlier tactics. The pattern is becoming clearer with each interaction, an evolving response as the crew gradually realizes the situation can't be easily dismissed or minimized. Approximately 30 minutes later, Martinez returns, his demeanor noticeably less confrontational. Dr. Reynolds, he begins, acknowledging her title this time. I want to apologize for my earlier approach. After speaking with First Officer Parker and reviewing the incident report you filed, I have a more complete understanding of the situation. Thank you, Officer Martinez, Maya responds, noting the shift but maintaining her guard. I appreciate that acknowledgement. I've spoken with Ms. Whitfield as well, he continues, adjusting his tie uncomfortably, to get her perspective on what occurred. And Maya prompts when he doesn't elaborate. Martinez's expression suggests the conversation didn't go as expected. Let's just say her account contains some inconsistencies, and her son's behavior in first class has been problematic. This vague reference to ongoing issues with Tyler piques Maya's interest, but she doesn't press for details. I'm not surprised to hear that. Captain Anderson wanted me to assure you that your incident report has been properly logged, and he's noted the situation in the journey log as requested. I appreciate that, Maya says. And the corporate follow-up. The captain has already contacted Skylink's passenger advocacy department. You should receive a call within 24 hours of landing. This represents a significant escalation from standard procedures. Direct captain intervention and expedited corporate response suggests the situation has been elevated beyond the flight crew's authority. Thank you for the update, Officer Martinez, Maya says. Is there anything else? No, ma'am, unless you or your niece need anything for the remainder of the flight. We're fine, thank you, Maya assures him. As Martinez returns to the front of the aircraft, David leans across the aisle again. Now they're falling all over themselves to make amends. Something's changed. Yes, Maya agrees. But what? She doesn't have to wonder long. About 15 minutes later, Michael approaches with fresh drinks for both of them without being asked. Just thought you might like a refill, he says, placing the beverages on their tray tables. As he leans in to set down Amara's apple juice, he speaks in a low voice. You should know, there's a significant development. Miss Whitfield made a scene in first class when she found out who your niece's father is. Maya keeps her expression neutral, despite her surprise. I see. And how exactly did she find that out? Apparently she was complaining loudly about you both when another passenger in first class recognized Amara's name and mentioned her father's position. Michael straightens up, speaking at normal volume again. Can I get you anything else? No, thank you, Maya says. We're fine for now. After Michael moves on, Amara looks at Maya with confusion. What was he talking about? What about Dad? Maya considers how to explain this development. It seems someone on the plane knows who your father is and mentioned it to Ms. Whitfield. You mean that he's the... Yes, Maya interrupts gently. And apparently Ms. Whitfield is upset about learning that information. Amara processes this. So she's scared because Dad is important. She's probably concerned about consequences. Maya explains carefully. Actions have consequences, and she's realizing hers might be more significant than she anticipated. The revelation that James Thompson's identity has become known adds a new dimension to the unfolding situation. As Chief Operations Officer of Skylink Airlines, James oversees all operational aspects of the company, including crew behavior, customer experience, and discrimination policies. Maya hadn't planned to leverage her brother's position, She wanted the situation addressed on its merits, not because of who Amar's father is. But now that the connection has been revealed, the dynamics have shifted dramatically. She adds this development to her notes, including Michael's exact words and the timing. This explains the crew's rapidly evolving approach, from dismissal to deflection to damage control to active appeasement. Should we tell them they're right about Dad? Amara asks. Maya considers this question carefully. We don't need to confirm or deny anything. The facts of how we were treated remain the same, regardless of who your father is. But Dad would want to know, Amara points out. Yes, and we'll call him as soon as we land, Maya assures her. But for now, Atham, let's just continue as we have been, calm, documented, and focused on the facts. The flight continues, now past the halfway mark to San Francisco. The Rockies have given way to the Great Basin of Nevada, the landscape below transitioning from dramatic peaks to expansive high desert. Amara has returned to looking out the window, though still with less enthusiasm than she'd shown before takeoff. The cabin atmosphere has changed perceptibly. Flight attendants move through the aisles with an air of tension. Whispered conversations occur at the galleys. Catherine hasn't returned to their section, remaining primarily in first class where, based on occasional raised voices, Patricia Whitfield continues to create disturbances. About an hour later, as the plane begins its gradual descent toward California, Captain Robert Anderson's voice comes over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're beginning our initial descent into the San Francisco area. Weather at our destination is clear and 68 degrees. We expect to land approximately 15 minutes ahead of schedule despite our delayed departure. Flight attendants will be coming through the cabin shortly to collect any remaining service items. There's a brief pause before he continues, his tone shifting slightly. I also want to take a moment to apologize for any disruption or discomfort experienced by passengers before departure or during our flight today. Skylink Airlines is committed to providing a respectful, inclusive environment for all passengers. If anyone experienced or witnessed behavior contrary to these values, please speak with a flight attendant about completing an incident report. Thank you for your attention, and we'll be on the ground shortly. This unusual public acknowledgement, clearly referencing the confrontation without explicitly mentioning it, confirms that the situation has escalated to the highest level of in-flight authority. The captain would not make such an announcement without significant cause. Did he mean what happened to us? Amara asked quietly. Yes, Maya confirms. That was his way of acknowledging that something inappropriate occurred and encouraging other witnesses to document what they saw. Amanda leans forward again. That's not standard procedure. Someone's pulled some serious strings. It appears so, Maya agrees, though she still hasn't confirmed or denied James's connection to the airline. As the plane continues its descent towards San Francisco, Catherine finally returns to their section, her professional demeanor strained but intact. Dr. Reynolds, she begins formally. The captain wanted me to inform you that a Skylink customer advocacy representative will be meeting your flight upon arrival. They'll be available to discuss the incident further if you wish. Thank you, Maya says simply, neither accepting nor rejecting the implied offer. Also, Catherine continues, handing Maya an envelope. Here's the copy of the journey log entry you requested, signed by Captain Anderson. This prompt delivery of documentation, unusual in its efficiency, further confirms the elevated status this incident has achieved. I appreciate that, Maya says, accepting the envelope but not opening it immediately. Catherine hesitates, then adds in a lower voice, for what it's worth, I apologize for my handling of the initial situation. It was not my finest moment as the purser. The apology, while belated and likely motivated by self-preservation rather than genuine remorse, is still notable. Maya acknowledges it with a nod. Thank you for saying that, Miss Wilson. As Catherine returns to her duties, Amara looks at Maya with a mixture of confusion and admiration. Everyone's being so nice to us now. Yes, Maya agrees. It's amazing how behavior changes when people realize there might be consequences for their actions. Is it because of Dad? Partly, Maya acknowledges honestly, but also because we stood firm, documented everything, and had witnesses support us. Your father's position might speed up the response, but the facts of what happened would matter regardless. As the plane descends through 10,000 feet, Signaled by the customary chime and illuminated seatbelt sign, Maya reflects on the journey they've experienced. What should have been a straightforward 5-hour flight became a case study in discrimination, institutional responses, and the complex interplay of privilege and accountability. "Auntie," Amara says, interrupting her thoughts, "I'm glad you were with me. I don't think I could have handled this by myself." The simple statement, acknowledging both the trauma of the experience and the importance of advocacy, brings a lump to Maya's throat. "You're stronger than you know, Amara," she says softly. "But no one should have to handle something like this alone, especially not a 9-year-old. Do you think it will happen again? People treating us differently because we're brown?" The question, innocent and devastating in its pragmatism, requires absolute honesty. "Probably, partner," Maya acknowledges. "I wish I could tell you otherwise. But yes, it probably will happen again in some form. The world isn't always fair or kind, but what matters is how we respond, with dignity, documentation, and determination to create change, and knowing that many people, like Amanda and David, will stand with us when it happens." Amara nods solemnly, processing this difficult truth. Then, with the resilience that continually amazes Maya, she points to the window where the San Francisco Bay has come into view. "Look, Auntie, I can see the Golden Gate Bridge as the plane banks for its final approach, offering a spectacular view of San Francisco's iconic landmarks." Maya allows herself a moment of relief. Despite everything, they've arrived safely. Amara is still finding joy in discovery. And perhaps this difficult experience will lead to meaningful changes that benefit future passengers. The aircraft touches down at 4:37 p.m. Pacific Time, 15 minutes ahead of schedule despite the delayed departure. As they taxi toward the gate, Maya sends a quick text to James landed safely. "Significant developments during flight. We'll call as soon as we deplane. Amara is okay." The response comes immediately. "Thank God. I've been worried sick. We'll be waiting for your call. Give Amara a huge hug from me." When the seatbelt sign finally turns off and passengers begin the usual rush to retrieve overhead luggage, Maya and Amara remain seated, in no hurry to join the crush. Amanda and David both stop to exchange contact information before departing, reiterating their willingness to provide witness statements if needed. "Thank you both for your support," Maya says sincerely. "It made a significant difference." "Standing up against injustice isn't optional," Amanda responds. "It's necessary." As the cabin gradually empties, Maya notices 2 individuals in Skylink corporate attire waiting at the aircraft door, their expressions professionally concerned. The true reckoning is about to begin. "Ready to go see Grandma and Grandpa?" Maya asks Amara, helping her gather her things. "Yes," Amara says decisively. "And I'm going to tell them everything that happened. Grandpa always says we have to tell our stories so things can change." "Your grandpa is a very wise man," Maya agrees, taking Amara's hand as they finally make their way toward the aircraft door, and whatever comes next. Section 6, The Revelation and Turning Point. "Dr. Reynolds Miso Thompson, I'm Sarah Rodriguez, Skylink Customer Advocacy Director. We'd like to speak with you privately about today's incident." The woman who delivers this introduction stands at the aircraft door, her expression the careful blend of concern and professionalism, perfected by high-level corporate representatives trained to handle potentially explosive situations. Beside her stands a man in an impeccably tailored suit who introduces himself as Daniel Morris, Skylink Legal Department. Maya eyes them both calmly, still holding Amara's hand. "I appreciate your prompt response, but we're expected by family. Perhaps we could schedule a time to discuss this tomorrow." Rodriguez and Morris exchange quick glances. "Dr. Reynolds," Morris begins, his voice lowered. "Given the nature of the incident, we'd like to address this immediately. We have a private conference room available, and it would only take about 20 minutes of your time." "I understand it," Maya says, "but my priority right now is getting my niece to her grandparents. She's been through enough today." Amara squeezes Maya's hand and, clearly uncomfortable with the prospect of more discussions about the incident, Maya squeezes back reassuringly. "Of course," Rodriguez says, her tone softening as she looks at Amara. "We completely understand. Would it be possible to speak with you alone while someone from our staff stays with Amara in our premium lounge? She would have access to snacks and entertainment." "No," Maya says firmly. Amara and I will remain together. If you'd like to walk with us to baggage claim while we talk, that's fine, but we're not separating. Morris looks like he wants to press the issue, but Rodriguez seems to recognize the immovability in Maya's stance. That's fine, we can walk and talk. As they make their way through the jet bridge and into the terminal, Rodriguez attempts to establish rapport. First, I want to sincerely apologize for what you both experienced today. From the initial reports, it's clear that several Skylink policies were not properly followed. That's an understatement, Maya responds, guiding Amara through the busy terminal toward the escalators that will take them to baggage claim. What we experienced was explicit discrimination, both from another passenger and from your flight crew. Morris interjects with practiced diplomacy. We're still gathering all the facts, of course, but I want to assure you that Skylink takes these allegations extremely seriously. They're not allegations, Maya corrects him. They're documented incidents with multiple witnesses and video evidence. Rodriguez nods quickly. Yes, of course. Poor choice of words on my part. She's interrupted by a commotion ahead of them. Near the customer service desk, Patricia Whitfield's voice carries clearly across the terminal. This is outrageous. Do you have any idea who my husband is? I demand to speak with someone in authority immediately. Tyler stands beside her, still absorbed in his gaming device, seemingly indifferent to his mother's ongoing tantrum. Two customer service representatives attempt to calm Patricia with limited success. Perhaps we should take a different route, Morris suggests, attempting to steer them away from the confrontation. No, Maya says firmly. This is the most direct path to baggage claim, and I see no reason to take a detour. As they approach the customer service desk, Patricia spots them. Her expression transforms from general outrage to specific fury. There they are. Those are the people who caused all this trouble. Maya keeps walking, maintaining her steady pace and keeping Amara close. Rodriguez and Morris look increasingly uncomfortable. Miss Whitfield, Rodriguez begins, please lower your voice. We're addressing the situation. Addressing it, Patricia interrupts incredulously. You should be removing them from the terminal. Do you know what they did? They deliberately disrupted an entire flight, forced my son and me to sit in inappropriate seats, and then somehow convinced the crew to treat us like criminals. Maya pauses now, turning to face Patricia directly. Ms. Whitfield, every word you just said, it is demonstrably false, as the video evidence and multiple witnesses' statements will confirm. I suggest you stop making additional defamatory statements that will only worsen your position. Patricia's face flushes crimson. How dare you speak to me that way? Do you know who I am? Yes, Maya says calmly. You're someone who demanded my niece give up her assigned seat, made racist comments when refused, and has been creating disturbances ever since. That's precisely who you are, and it's all documented. Rodriguez steps between them. Please, let's all take a moment to... I want them banned from flying Skylink, Patricia demands, pointing dramatically at Maya and Amara. I want them placed on the no-fly list for threatening behavior. At this absurd escalation, Maya can't help but raise an eyebrow. Threatening behavior. Please elaborate on how a 9-year-old child and her aunt threatened you by sitting quietly in their assigned seats. Tyler finally looks up from his game. Mom, can we just go? This is embarrassing. Patricia ignores him, her rage seemingly fueled by the public confrontation and her inability to intimidate Maya. You deliberately humiliated me in front of an entire plane. You turned the crew against me. You boss. Miss Whitfield. The new voice cuts through the chaos with quiet authority. Everyone turns to see a man in his early 40s approaching from the direction of the security checkpoint. Tall, with the same warm brown skin and thoughtful eyes as Amara. He walks with the confident stride of someone accustomed to command. His tailored suit bears no outward insignia, but the reactions of the Skylink employees are immediate and telling. Rodriguez straightens perceptibly. Morris adjusts his tie. The customer service representatives behind the desk suddenly look alert and anxious. James, Amara cries out, breaking free from Maya's hand and running toward the man. James Thompson kneels to catch his daughter in a tight embrace, lifting her off the ground as he stands. Hey, Starlight, I missed you. Dad, you're supposed to be in New York, Amara exclaims, her arms wrapped around his neck. I caught an earlier flight when Auntie Maya texted me about what happened. James explains, his eyes finding Maya's over Amara's shoulder. The silent communication between siblings conveys volumes. Gratitude, concern, shared purpose. Mr. Thompson, by these signs, Rodriguez begins, her tone markedly different. We were just discussing the unfortunate incident. I'm aware, James interrupts, his voice level but carrying unmistakable authority. And I'll be addressing it personally right now. However, I'd like to ensure my daughter and sister are taken care of after what they've experienced. Patricia Whitfield looks between James, Maya, and Amara, confusion gradually giving way to dawning recognition. Thompson, as in James Thompson, he confirms, shifting Amara to one arm and extending his hand to Maya, who moves to his side. Chief Operations Officer of Skylink Airlines, and you, I believe, are Patricia Whitfield, who made racist remarks to my daughter and sister on one of my aircraft. The color drains from Patricia's face. Tyler looks up from his game, suddenly interested in the unfolding drama. There must be some misunderstanding, Patricia stammers. I had no idea, but that is, I would never. There's no misunderstanding, Ms. Whitfield, James says, his tone unchanged but his eyes hard as granite. We have multiple witness statements, video evidence, and an official incident report detailing exactly what occurred. What I don't yet understand is why my 9-year-old daughter was instructed to sit in the back of an aircraft, or why my sister was told to know her place. The terminal seems to have gone quiet, though in reality it is just the participants in this drama who have fallen silent. Patricia's mouth opens and closes, but no words emerge. James turns to Rodriguez and Morris. I expect full investigative reports on my desk by 9 a.m. tomorrow. That includes crew statements, witness accounts, and complete documentation of how this situation was handled from start to finish. Yes, sir, Rodriguez responds immediately. We'll have everything prepared. In the meantime, James continues, Ms. Whitfield and her son are to be removed from all Skylink flights for the next 24 hours, pending a formal review of their status as customers of this airline. You can't do that. Patricia finally finds her voice. We have a return flight tomorrow morning. My husband will. Your husband will be fully informed of the situation, James interrupts calmly, including the video evidence of your behavior. Whether he chooses to defend that behavior is, of course, up to him. Patricia falls silent again, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. Tyler tugs at her sleeve. Mom, I told you to stop. James turns back to Maya. Are you both okay? We're fine, Maya assures him. Though it's been quite a journey. I bet it has, James says grimly. Mom and Tom are waiting in the arrivals area. Let's get your bags and get out of here. As they turn to leave, Patricia makes one last desperate attempt. This isn't fair. You're only taking their side because they're your family. James pauses, turning back with Amara still in his arms. Miss Whitfield, I haven't even begun to review the evidence yet. When I do, I'll evaluate it objectively, as I would any incident on any Skylink flight. But based on the preliminary reports I've received from multiple sources, including the captain's log, I have more than enough cause for the temporary measures I've implemented. He looks directly at Tyler, his expression softening slightly. Young man, I hope you learned something valuable from this experience. Privilege doesn't exempt anyone from basic human decency, and actions always have consequences. With that, he turns away, guiding Maya toward the escalators that lead to baggage claim. Rodriguez and Morris follow at a respectful distance, while Patricia remains rooted in place, the full impact of her actions finally catching up to her. As they descend on the escalator, Amara looks at her father with solemn eyes. Dad, they were really mean. They said we should sit in the back of the plane. A shadow passes over James's face, the pain of a father hearing his child recount discrimination he'd hoped to shield her from for a little longer. I know, Starlight, and I'm so sorry that happened to you. Auntie Maya didn't let them bully us, Amara continues. She was like a superhero, but without the cape. This brings a small smile to James's face. Your Auntie Maya has always been the strongest person I know. Even when we were kids, Maya shakes her head. Amara was pretty remarkable herself. She handled everything with more grace than most adults would have. They reach the bottom of the escalator and make their way toward the baggage claim carousels. Rodriguez and Morris maintain a respectful distance, clearly understanding that the family needs space but unwilling to completely abandon their professional responsibilities. Dad, Amara says as they walk, how come you're here? I thought you were in New York until Friday. James adjusts his daughter in his arms, though at 9 she's nearly too big to carry. When Auntie Maya texted me about what happened, I knew I needed to be here. Some things are more important than business meetings. Starlight, you and your aunt being treated that way, that's more important than any deal. You didn't have to come, Maya says quietly. We were handling it. I know you were, James responds. You always do, but this time you shouldn't have to. Not alone. As they approach baggage claim, Maya spots her parents, Margaret and William Thompson, waiting anxiously by the designated carousel. Margaret, a retired school principal with silver-streaked hair and the same thoughtful eyes as James and Amara, rushes forward when she sees them. There they are. We were getting worried when you didn't come out with the other passengers. William, tall and distinguished at 70, with a professor's bearing from his years teaching sociology at UC Berkeley, follows close behind. Everything all right? James arrived in quite a rush, saying there'd been some trouble. Margaret embraces Maya first, then kneels to Amara's level as James sets her down. My sweet girl, look how much you've grown. Amara falls into her grandmother's arms, the familiar comfort momentarily overshadowing the stress of the day. Grandma, I saw the Rocky Mountains from the plane. William gives Maya a warm hug, then looks questioningly at James. The silent communication between father and son conveys that a fuller explanation will come later, away from Amara's ears. Let's get your bags and head home, William suggests. Your grandmother has prepared a feast fit for returning travelers. Rodriguez approaches respectfully. Mr. Thompson, shall we arrange a meeting for tomorrow to discuss next step? Yes, James confirms. My office, 9 a.m. Bring the complete documentation we discussed. Of course, sir. As their checked bags appear on the carousel, William helps retrieve them, and the family begins moving toward the exit. The Skylink representatives remain behind, their expressions suggesting they understand the gravity of the situation awaiting them tomorrow. Outside, Saya, a sleek company car awaits them, James's executive privilege providing at least one positive outcome from the day's events. As the driver loads their luggage, Margaret studies Maya's face with the perceptiveness of a mother who knows her daughter well. It was bad, wasn't it? She asked quietly. It was, Maya confirms, keeping her voice low as Amara excitedly shows William a photo on her phone. Worse than it should have been in 2025. Margaret shakes her head, a lifetime of similar experiences reflected in her eyes. Some things change slower than others, but you stood your ground. Of course, Maya says, and documented everything. That's my girl, Margaret says with fierce pride. The family settles into the spacious vehicle, Amara between her grandparents in the back seat, Maya and James facing them in the rear-facing executive seats. As they pull away from the terminal, Amara launches into an excited description of the Rocky Mountains and the different cloud formations she observed during the flight. Her resilience, the ability to find joy despite the day's ugliness, brings a mixture of relief and sadness to the adults listening. When Amara pauses to take a breath, William gently asks, So there was some trouble on the flight. Before Maya can decide how much to share, Amara answers directly. A mean lady and her son tried to take my window seat. Then they said bad things about us being brown, but Auntie Maya didn't let them. Margaret's arm tightens around her granddaughter's shoulders. William's expression darkens, though he maintains a calm demeanor for Amara's sake. The flight crew also handled it poorly, Maya adds, keeping the details minimal for now. At least initially. Until they found out who Dad is, Amara adds with a straightforward perception of childhood. Then they got super nice really fast. James shakes his head, which is exactly the problem. You shouldn't need to be related to an executive to be treated with basic dignity. No, you shouldn't, William agrees, his professor's voice carrying decades of wisdom on this subject. But sometimes position creates opportunities for broader change. James meets his father's eyes, understanding the deeper meaning. Yes, it does. And I intend to use this position exactly that way. The conversation shifts as they merge onto the freeway heading north towards Sausalito. Amara begins pointing out landmarks she recognizes from previous visits, her natural enthusiasm gradually returning. The adults allow this diversion, recognizing her need to process the day's events in her own way, at her own pace. As the car crosses the Golden Gate Bridge, the San Francisco skyline glittering in the late afternoon sun behind them, Amara presses her face to the window. "It's so beautiful," she says. "I wish Mom could see it too." "She'll be here next weekend," James reminds her, once she finishes her conference in Boston. While Amara continues chatting with her grandparents, James leans closer to Maya. "Thank you, Psitamko," he says quietly, "for protecting her, for standing firm, for documenting everything. She's my niece." Maya responds simply, "I wasn't going to let anyone treat her that way." "I know," James says, "but it shouldn't have happened in the first place. Not on my airline, not to my family, not to anyone." The determination in his voice makes it clear that tomorrow's meeting will be the beginning of significant changes at Skylink. The car winds through the hills of Marin County, finally pulling into the driveway of William and Margaret's spacious Sausalito home with its panoramic view of the bay. As they exit the vehicle, Amara runs ahead to the front door, her earlier distress temporarily forgotten in the excitement of being at her grandparents' house. "I'll help Dad with the bags," James tells Maya. "Go on in with Mom and Amara." Maya recognizes this as the thoughtful brother she's always known, creating space for her to decompress after the stressful journey. She squeezes his arm gratefully before following Margaret and Amara into the house. Inside, the warm, familiar sense of Margaret is cooking welcomed them. The dining table is already set, fresh flowers in the center, Amara's favorite grape juice chilling in a special glass pitcher. These small, loving details, prepared before they knew about the day's difficulties, bring a lump to Maya's throat. As Amara explores the house to see what might have changed since her last visit, Margaret turns to Maya. "Now, tell me everything," she says. The unfiltered version. Maya sits at the kitchen counter, accepting the glass of water her mother offers. It was textbook discrimination. Mom, from start to finish. She relates the entire sequence of events, the initial confrontation, the crew's biased response, the escalation, the explicit racism, and finally the reversal when James's position became known. Margaret listens without interruption, though her expression shifts between anger, pain, and grim recognition. When Maya finishes, she shakes her head slowly. 65 years I've been on this earth," she says, "and still these stories sound too familiar." "I know," Maya agrees. "I kept thinking about how you and Dad prepared us for these moments. All those conversations about standing firm, documenting everything, knowing our rights. We hoped you wouldn't need those lessons," Margaret admits. "Every generation hopes that, but here we are, still having to armor our children against the same old prejudices." Through the window, they can see James and William by the car, engaged in what appears to be an intense conversation. William's hand rests on his son's shoulder, comfort and strength passing from father to son. "James will make changes," Margaret says, following Maya's gaze. "That's who he is. He'll channel this into something constructive." "I know he will," Maya agrees. "I just wish that Amara didn't have to learn these lessons so young," Margaret finishes for her. "Yes, she's 9. Mom, she should be worried about science projects and what book to read next, not whether people will treat her differently because of her skin color." Margaret sighs. "I felt the same way when you and James were growing up. But the reality is, children like Amara don't have the luxury of ignorance. Better she learns with loving adults around her than alone." From another room comes the sound of Amara's delighted laughter. She's discovered something that's brought her joy. The sound is a reminder of childhood's resilience, its capacity to find light even after darkness. "She's going to be okay," Margaret assures Maya. "She has you, and James, and all of us, and she's already showing the strength that runs in this family." The front door opens as James and William enter with the luggage. Amara returns from her exploration, eager to show her father something she's found. The family converges in the living room, their presence creating a circle of safety and understanding that stands in stark contrast to the hostility Maya and Amara faced on the flight. William raises his glass. "To family," he says simply. "Our first and strongest line of defense." They all drink to that. even Amara with her grape juice, though she may not fully grasp the deeper meaning behind her grandfather's toast. As they settle in for dinner, the conversation gradually shifts to lighter topics: Amara's school projects, Maya's recent research publication, James's plans for his week in San Francisco. But beneath this normal family discourse runs an undercurrent of shared purpose. What happened today will not be forgotten or dismissed. It will be addressed, not just for Amara's sake, but for all the passengers who might face similar treatment without the protection of a COO in the family. Later, as Amara helps her grandmother clear the table, James pulls Maya aside. "I'm meeting with the executive team first thing tomorrow." He tells her, "Would you be willing to join us? Your perspective as both a passenger and a professional would be valuable." "Of course," Maya agrees. "Though I'm surprised you're not asking me to stay with Amara instead." "Mom and Dad will be with her," James explains. "And honestly, this meeting needs your voice. The airline needs to hear directly from you, not just read your incident report." Maya nods, understanding the importance of personal testimony in creating meaningful change. "I'll be there." As evening settles over the bay, the family gathers on the deck overlooking the water. Amara, nestled between her grandparents on the porch swing, points excitedly at a ship passing beneath the Golden Gate Bridge. "Look, that's like the one in my book about ocean exploration." William, ever the educator, begins explaining different types of vessels and their purposes. Amara listens with rapt attention, her mind already shifting toward new discoveries, new knowledge. Maya and James stand at the railing, watching this interaction with matching expressions of love and determination. "Tomorrow," James says quietly, "we start making sure this doesn't happen to another child on my airline." "Tomorrow," Maya agrees. The setting sun casts long shadows across the deck, but the family remains in the light, together, supportive, resolved. What began as a traumatic confrontation has become a catalyst for change. A turning point not just for Maya and Amara, but potentially for an entire organization. And through it all, Amara's resilience shines like the lights now twinkling on the bridge, a reminder that even after darkness descends, illumination follows. Section 7, Immediate Consequences. Good morning, everyone. I've called this emergency session because yesterday, Skylink Airlines failed, not in terms of safety, not in terms of operations, but in the most fundamental aspect of our business, human dignity. James Thompson stands at the head of the conference table in Skylink's San Francisco executive suite, his expression grave. The room is filled with senior management, operations, legal, customer experience, training, human resources, all summoned on short notice for this 9 a.m. meeting. Maya sits to his right, her posture professional, her presence commanding respect. Displayed on the large screen behind James is a simple statement: Skylink Airlines Discrimination Incident, Flight 437, 5/2/25. Before we begin, James continues, I want to make one thing absolutely clear. While the victims in this case happen to be my family members, my response would be exactly the same regardless of who experienced this treatment. Is that understood? Nods around the table acknowledge this statement, though Robert Chen, VP of Operations, looks skeptical. He leans forward slightly, his body language suggesting he has reservations about the situation. Dr. Maya Reynolds will provide a first-hand account of what occurred, James says, gesturing to his sister. I expect everyone to listen without interruption. Following her account, we'll review the official documentation, witness statements, and video evidence. Then and only then will we discuss appropriate responses. He turns to Maya. Dr. Reynolds, please proceed. Maya straightens, meeting the eyes of each executive around the table. Her voice is calm but authoritative as she recounts the events on Flight 437, beginning with Patricia Whitfield's initial demand for Amara's seat, the crew's biased response, the escalation to discriminatory comments, and the attempt to isolate them from witnesses during the flight. When Tyler Whitfield told my 9-year-old niece that she should be sitting in the back anyway, the intent was unmistakable. Maya explains. That followed his mother telling me to know my place and referring to us as you people. Several executives wince visibly. Maria Hernandez, head of training, makes notes with a troubled expression. Daniel Morris, from legal, shakes his head slightly. already calculating liability. When Maya finishes, James takes over again. Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. Now, let's review the supporting evidence. Sarah Rodriguez, the customer advocacy director from the airport, advances through a series of slides. First, Maya's detailed incident report with its timeline of events. Then statements from Amanda Ramirez and David Rodriguez, the attorneys who witnessed the confrontation. Next come transcripts from crew reports, showing significant discrepancies between Michael Perez's account and those of Catherine Wilson and Jessica Rivera. Finally, still images captured from passenger videos, showing Patricia Whitfield's confrontational posture and the flight attendant's biased body language. We also have video with audio, Rodriguez explains, her voice tense, which clearly captures Ms. Whitfield's sit-in-the-back comment and other explicitly racist remarks. Play it, James instructs. The video, recorded by Amanda from the row behind Maya and Amara, fills the screen. The audio is clear enough to capture Patricia's contemptuous tone and Tyler's comment about sitting in the back. When the clip ends, a heavy silence hangs over the room. Questions, James asks, his tone making it clear he expects substantive inquiries. Daniel Moore speaks first, leaning forward with his hands clasped tightly. From a liability perspective, this is extremely concerning. The crew's actions, particularly Catherine Wilson's attempt to redirect an air marshal to intimidate the victims rather than address the perpetrators, potentially exposes us to significant legal action. I'm less concerned about liability than I am about the complete failure of our training and culture. James responds, Maria, your thoughts? Maria Hernandez, the head of training, shakes her head slowly. This represents multiple failures in our bias awareness training. Jessica Rivera's immediate siding with Ms. Whitfield without verification, Catherine's attempt to placate the louder party rather than enforce policy, Michael's failure to intervene despite recognizing the problem. These all suggest our training isn't translating into actual behavior changes. Exactly, James says us. And that's what we're here to address, not just the specific incident, but the systemic failures it reveals. Robert Chen shifts uncomfortably in his chair before speaking. James, while I agree this is completely unacceptable, is it possible we're giving it elevated attention because of the family connection? We handle dozens of passenger conflicts daily, sir. Let me stop you right there, Robert. James interrupts, his voice level but firm. First, if you're suggesting we routinely have incidents where passengers tell 9-year-old children to sit in the back of planes because of their race, that's an even more damning indictment of our airline than I thought. Second, this incident has been independently verified by multiple witnesses, crew reports, and video evidence. Its severity stands regardless of who was involved. Chen looks appropriately chastened, his face flushing slightly. Fair point. I withdraw the question. Now, James continues, let's discuss immediate actions. I want proposals from each department within the hour. Legal. What's your recommendation for the passengers involved? Morris responds without hesitation. Ms. Whitfield and her son should be banned from Skylink flights for a minimum of 1 year, with reinstatement contingent upon completion of a formal apology and sensitivity training. We have clear evidence of violation of our passenger code of conduct, specifically the anti-discrimination provisions. Human resources. James turns to Patricia Garcia, the HR director. The crew members, Garcia leans forward, her expression troubled but determined. Based on the evidence presented, I recommend immediate suspension pending investigation for Catherine Wilson and Jessica Rivera. For Michael Perez, a formal reprimand with mandatory retraining, acknowledging his junior status and eventual attempt to correct course. All 3 should undergo comprehensive bias response training before returning to active duty. James nods, making notes. Training. Maria Hernandez sits forward, tapping her tablet. This reveals critical gaps in our current program. I recommend an emergency review of our discrimination response protocols, with updated training implemented within 30 days for all customer-facing staff. The incident should be developed into a case study for future training sessions. Customer advocacy. James turns to Rodriguez. A formal apology to Dr. Reynolds and Missy Thompson is the bare minimum. She begins, her hands moving expressively. Beyond that, I recommend reviewing our incident reporting procedures. The attempt to provide a generic comment card rather than the proper incident form suggests a systemic attempt to minimize discrimination complaints. James listens to each recommendation, his expression thoughtful. When all departments have provided input, he turns back to Maya. Dr. Reynolds, you've heard the initial recommendations. Do you have anything to add from your perspective? Maya considers for a moment. Yes. While these recommendations address the specific incident, they don't fully address the underlying culture that allowed it to happen. The crew's immediate assumption that we were in the wrong, their prioritization of an entitled passenger over policy enforcement, their attempt to intimidate us into compliance, these suggest deeper issues with how your staff perceives and values different passengers. Her words land with impact. Several executives shift uncomfortably, recognizing the truth in her assessment. What would you recommend? James asks, though his expression suggests he already knows her answer. A comprehensive audit of passenger treatment by demographic categories. Maya states clearly. Anonymous testing to identify bias patterns. And most importantly, changes to incentive structures that currently prioritize appeasing the loudest, most entitled customers over treating all passengers with equal respect. James nods, turning back to the room. I agree with Dr. Reynolds. Here are my decisions. Effective immediately. 1. Patricia Whitfield and Tyler Whitfield are banned from Skylink flights for 1 year. Reinstatement will require completion of our passenger respect program and formal apologies to Dr. Reynolds and Amara Thompson. 2. Catherine Wilson is suspended pending investigation, with recommendation for termination based on her attempt to use security personnel to intimidate discrimination victims. Jessica Rivera is suspended for 4 weeks with mandatory comprehensive retraining before reinstatement. Michael Perez will receive a formal reprimand with required additional training. 3. Within 30 days. Training will implement revised bias response protocols for all customer-facing staff, with quarterly refreshers. 4. Customer advocacy will overhaul our incident reporting procedures to ensure discrimination complaints are properly documented and addressed. 5. Operations will conduct a comprehensive audit of passenger treatment patterns across demographic categories, with results reported directly to me. 6. Human resources will revise performance metrics to explicitly include equitable treatment as a core evaluation criterion. These actions address the immediate incident, but they're just the beginning. I want comprehensive recommendations for structural changes on my desk by the end of the week. The executives absorb these directives, some nodding in agreement, others looking concerned about implementation challenges. Robert Chen's pen hovers over his notepad, his expression suggesting he's calculating the operational impact of these changes. 1 final point, James adds, his voice quieter but no less resolute. While I expect absolute professionalism and discretion regarding the family connection in this case, I want everyone to understand something. What makes this incident particularly significant isn't that it happened to my family. What makes it significant is that it happened at all, and that our systems failed to prevent or properly address it. That's not a family matter. That's a Skylink Airlines failure, and we will fix it. The meeting concludes with clear assignments and tight deadlines. As the executives file out, James and Maya remain seated. Thank you, he says quietly when they're alone, for handling this professionally despite the personal impact. It's what we were taught, Maya responds simply. Yes, James agrees. Mom and Dad prepared us well. I just wish Amara didn't need those same lessons so soon. She's strong, Ijao, Maya assures him, and she has all of us. She does, James agrees. And hopefully, after these changes, she'll have an airline that treats her and everyone with the dignity they deserve. As they leave the conference room, activity throughout the executive floor suggests their meeting has already triggered a cascade of responses. Staff members hurry between offices. Phones ring constantly, and the atmosphere crackles with the energy of an organization facing a moment of reckoning. By noon, the consequences have begun rolling out. Catherine Wilson receives formal notice of her suspension pending investigation. Her security access to Skylink systems immediately restricted. Jessica Rivera is informed of her 4-week suspension and mandatory retraining. Michael Perez acknowledges his reprimand with a personal note expressing regret for not intervening sooner. Patricia Whitfield, attempting to check in for her return flight, discovers her Skylink privileges have been revoked. Her furious call to customer service is escalated to Daniel Morris, who explains the decision with professional detachment. citing specific violations of the passenger code of conduct supported by video evidence. This is outrageous. Patricia fumes, her voice rising in pitch. Do you know who my husband is, Miss Whitfield? Morris responds calmly. Your husband's identity is irrelevant to this decision. Your actions were captured on video and witnessed by multiple passengers. The 1-year suspension stands. By mid-afternoon, internal memos have circulated to all Skylink staff, announcing emergency training sessions on discrimination response protocols. The message, signed personally by James Thompson, makes the company's position clear. Skylink Airlines will not tolerate discrimination in any form, from any person, under any circumstances. Recent events have revealed gaps in our response protocols that we are addressing immediately and comprehensively. Meanwhile, at Margaret and William's home in Sausalito, Amara has spent the morning exploring tide pools with her grandfather, her natural scientific curiosity engaged by the miniature ecosystems nestled among coastal rocks. The fresh air, sunlight, and William's patient explanations of marine biology have provided a healing counterpoint to the previous day's tension. When Maya and James return in the late afternoon, they find Amara in the kitchen with Margaret, helping prepare dinner. Her hair is wind-tousled from the beach, her expression animated as she describes a starfish she discovered. Auntie Maya, Dad, Grandpa, and I found the coolest tide pools. There was this bright orange starfish that was bigger than my hand. The adults exchange glances over Amara's head, relieved to see her joy restored, determined to protect it better in the future. That sounds amazing, Maya says, washing her hands at the sink to help with dinner preparations. Tell me more about what you discovered. As Amara launches into a detailed description of various tide pool inhabitants, James steps onto the deck with his father. The two men stand side by side, looking out over the bay where container ships and sailboats navigate the same waters in their own distinct ways. How did it go? William asks. As well as could be expected. James answers. Immediate actions are underway. Longer-term changes will take more time. William nods, understanding both the spoken and unspoken aspects of his son's response. And how are you doing with all this? James is quiet for a moment, collecting his thoughts. Angry, sad, determined. I've spent years building protocols and policies to prevent exactly this kind of incident. To see them fail so completely, and to have my daughter experience that failure firsthand, it's hard to reconcile. Systems are only as good as the people implementing them, William observes. And people carry biases deeper than any policy can reach. So what's the solution, James asks, momentarily the son seeking wisdom rather than the executive making decisions. William considers this. You keep trying. You adjust. You make the consequences for discrimination swift and significant. You elevate voices like Maya's that speak truth about the real experiences. And most importantly, you remember that this work is never finished. Inside, Amara's laughter rings out as Maya apparently shares a funny story. The sound carries through the open door to the deck, a reminder of why this work matters. She's going to be okay, William assures his son. Children are remarkably resilient when they have love and truth surrounding them. I know, James agrees. I just wish she didn't need to be resilient in this particular way. That's been the wish of Black parents for generations, William says quietly. But wishing doesn't change reality. Action does. And I'm taking action, James affirms. Yes, you are, William acknowledges with pride. Using your position to create change that extends beyond your own family. That's the best response to what happened. As evening falls, the family gathers for dinner. The conversation flows naturally, touching on tide pools and training protocols, starfish and systemic change. Amara, seated between Maya and James, absorbs it all, the scientific knowledge from her grandfather, the medical insights from her aunt, the corporate strategies from her father, the wisdom from her grandmother. In this moment, surrounded by family, the painful experience on Flight 437 begins to transform from a traumatic memory into something else, a catalyst, a teaching moment, a turning point. Not just for Amara, but for an entire organization and potentially for thousands of future passengers who will never know how a confrontation over a window seat set in motion changes that would improve their own travel experiences. Later, as Amara gets ready for bed, she asks Maya a question that reveals she's been processing the events more deeply than the adults realize. Auntie Maya, Do you think that lady will learn to be better, or will she just be mad that she got in trouble? Maya sits on the edge of Amara's bed, considering how to answer honestly while maintaining age-appropriate optimism. I don't know for sure, she admits. Some people learn from their mistakes and grow. Others just get angry and blame everyone else. But what matters more is that the airline is learning and changing. Your dad is making sure of that. Amara nods thoughtfully. So even if she doesn't get better, maybe the next kid like me will have a better flight. The perspective, focusing on systemic improvement rather than individual redemption, impresses Maya with its maturity. That's exactly right. And that's why documentation and speaking up are so important, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who comes after us. Amara snuggles under her space-themed comforter, the constellations glowing faintly in the dimmed light. I'm glad you were with me, Auntie Maya. And I'm glad Dad came, even though he was supposed to be in New York. We'll always be there for you, Bus, Maya promises. No matter what, as Amara drifts towards sleep, Maya remains seated on the edge of the bed, watching her niece's peaceful expression. The contrast between this tranquil moment and yesterday's confrontation reinforces her determination to continue advocating in medicine, in society, wherever necessary for dignity and respect for everyone, especially those who don't have a COO in the family to ensure their complaints are taken seriously. Section 8, Systemic Change and Broader Impact. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Skylink Airlines Flight 289 from San Francisco to Chicago. My name is Captain Elena Rodriguez, and I'll be commanding your aircraft today. Before we begin our boarding process, I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone of Skylink's commitment to a respectful travel environment for all passengers. The boarding gate falls quiet as passengers look up from phones and laptops, surprised by this unusual pre-boarding announcement. At Skylink, we have a zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory behavior of any kind. All passengers have the right to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of race, gender, religion, or any other characteristic. Our crew is trained to enforce this policy without exception. We look forward to providing you with excellent service, and we thank you for choosing to fly with us today. As the announcement concludes, the normal bustle of pre-boarding resumes, though with a subtle difference. Passengers exchange glances, some nodding in approval, others looking mildly puzzled by the explicit statement. Maya, waiting with Amara for their return flight to Chicago 3 days after the incident, squeezes her niece's hand. That's new, she comments. Is that because of what happened to us? Amara asks. I think so, Maya confirms. That's part of the changes your dad has been working on. It's been 72 hours since Flight 437. And the changes James promised are already becoming visible throughout Skylink's operations. This pre-boarding announcement, now standard on all flights, is just one small example of the rapid transformation occurring throughout the airline. When boarding begins, Maya and Amara notice other subtle differences. The gate agents verify each boarding pass carefully, regardless of the passenger's appearance or attire. The flight attendants greeting passengers at the aircraft door make consistent eye contact with everyone. Their welcome equally warm for all travelers. As they settle into their seats, 14A and 14B again, with Amara at the window, Michael Perez appears in the aisle. His presence on this flight is no coincidence. James arranged for him to be part of the crew as a learning opportunity. Dr. Reynolds, Visity Thompson, he says, his expression earnest. I wanted to personally welcome you aboard and apologize again for my failure to intervene properly during your previous flight. I've completed the first phase of my additional training, and I'm committed to doing better. Maya acknowledges his statement with a nod. Thank you, Michael. Recognition and improvement are what matter now. Michael hesitates, then adds, if you experience any issues during this flight, though I sincerely hope you won't, please don't hesitate to alert me immediately. After he moves on, Amara looks thoughtful. He seems really sorry. I think he is. Maya agrees. And he's trying to learn from his mistakes, which is what matters most. The return flight proceeds without incident, a normal, uneventful journey that feels almost anticlimactic after the drama of their outbound experience. Yet this normality itself represents success, travel as it should be, without the burden of discrimination or conflict. When they land in Chicago, Maya's phone buzzes with a text from James Landed. Safely, change is noticeable. She replies, landed fine. Change is definitely noticeable. We'll call later with details. As they make their way through O'Hare toward the exit, digital displays throughout the terminal feature a new message alongside the usual flight information. Skylink Airlines' dignity and respect for all passengers. If you see something, report it. QR codes link to a simplified incident reporting system implemented just 2 days earlier. Your dad's been busy, Maya comments to Amara, nodding toward the displays. He always works fast when he's really determined. Amara responds with the insight of a child who knows her father well. Outside Maya's Evanston townhouse, as they unload their luggage from the rideshare, Amara suddenly gives her aunt a fierce hug. "Thank you for not letting them bully us," she says, her voice muffled against Maya's sweater, "and for teaching me how to stand up for myself." Maya returns the embrace, her throat tight with emotion. "You're welcome, sweet girl. I'm just sorry you needed that lesson so young." "It's okay," Amara says with that remarkable resilience. "Now I know what to do next time. Document everything and stand firm." The simplicity with which she distills the complex lessons of the past few days into actionable wisdom brings a smile to Maya's face. Exactly right. That evening, after getting Amara settled with her mother, who has returned from her conference, Maya joins a video call with James. On her laptop screen, he looks simultaneously exhausted and energized, the familiar expression of someone driven by purposeful work. "The changes are impressive, especially given the time frame," she tells him. "The pre-boarding announcement, the consistent verification procedures, the incident reporting displays, all implemented in just 3 days." James nods. "That's just the visible part. Behind the scenes, we've completely overhauled our discrimination response protocols. Every complaint now gets logged in a central database that I review personally each week. We've revised training modules for all customer-facing staff, with an emphasis on consistent enforcement regardless of passenger status." "And the crew from our flight?" Maya asks. "Catherine Wilson has been terminated," James confirms, rubbing his eyes briefly. "The investigation revealed multiple previous incidents of biased handling that were never properly addressed. Jessica Rivera is completing her suspension and required training. She's actually shown genuine remorse and a commitment to change, so we're giving her that opportunity. And Michael, he's become something of an advocate within the crew community," James says, a note of surprise in his voice. "He's speaking openly about his failure to intervene and what he's learned from it. It's creating some valuable conversations about bystander responsibility." Maya nods, pleased by this unexpected positive development. "And Patricia Whitfield, still furious about the 1-year ban," James says with a slight grimace. "She's threatened legal action, media exposure, everything you'd expect. But the video evidence is unambiguous, and our legal team is fully prepared if she proceeds." "And the corporate response?" Maya asks, concerned about potential backlash against James for his decisive actions. "The board is supportive, especially after reviewing the evidence. The CEO initially questioned whether the response was proportionate, but ultimately backed my decisions. The reality is, beyond the moral imperative, there's a strong business case for ensuring all passengers are treated with dignity." "The business case for justice," Maya comments. "Whatever works, I suppose." "Exactly," James agrees. "But here's what's most interesting since implementing these changes. Customer satisfaction scores have actually increased across all demographics. It turns out that clear, consistently enforced policies make everyone feel more secure, not just those who've experienced discrimination." This doesn't surprise Maya. In medicine, she's observed that protocols that protect the most vulnerable patients typically improve care for everyone. "We're also seeing unexpected benefits in operational efficiency," James continues, his voice animated. "When crew members don't waste time on unnecessary seat conflicts or appeasing entitled passengers, boarding proceeds more smoothly and on-time departures improve. So doing the right thing also happens to be good business," Maya observes. "That should help ensure these changes stick." "That's the plan," James confirms. "We're documenting all of these positive outcomes to demonstrate that equity and efficiency aren't in opposition. They're complementary." The conversation shifts to Amara, how she's processing the experience, the questions she's asking, the resilience she's showing. "She told me she knows what to do next time." Maya shares a document everything and stand firm. Direct quote. James shakes his head, pride mixing with lingering sadness. She shouldn't need that knowledge at 9. No, Maya agrees. But given the world we live in, I'm glad she has it. The ripple effects of Flight 437 continue expanding in the weeks that follow. Within Skylink, the training protocols developed in response to the incident become standard for all new hires and refresher courses. The incident itself, with names changed but details preserved, becomes a case study used throughout the company to illustrate how bias can manifest and how it should be addressed. The pre-boarding announcement about zero tolerance for discrimination, initially implemented as an emergency measure, proves so effective that other airlines begin adopting similar language. Industry publications note the trend, with one article specifically referencing the Skylink approach to creating a more respectful cabin environment. 1 month after the incident, James presents the preliminary results of Skylink's reform practices at an industry conference. The data is compelling: discrimination complaints down 68%, boarding efficiency improved by 12%, overall customer satisfaction increased by 7%. Other airlines take notice, with several reaching out to James for guidance on implementing similar changes. In medical circles, Maya finds herself sharing the experience during a panel discussion on advocacy in professional environments. Without naming the airline or invoking her brother's position, she describes the methodology that proved effective: calm documentation, clear communication, strategic alliance building, and unflinching persistence. The same approaches that serve us in advocating for patients can serve us in advocating for ourselves and our loved ones. She tells her colleagues, documentation isn't just for medical charts. It's a powerful tool against discrimination in all contexts. For Amara, the experience gradually integrates into her understanding of the world, not defining her perspective, but informing it. She becomes more observant of interactions around her, more aware of subtle inequities, more intentional about standing up for classmates who face unfair treatment. During a family video call 6 weeks after the incident, she excitedly tells James about a situation at school where she supported a new student who was being excluded from games because he spoke with an accent. I told them that's discrimination and it's not allowed, she explains proudly. Then I got Ms. Peterson to come over and handle it properly. I documented everything in my notebook, just like Auntie Maya taught me. The adults exchange glances over the video call, proud of her advocacy but wistful that it's necessary. You did exactly the right thing, James assures her. Standing up for others is one of the most important things we can do. 2 months after Flight 437, Skylink officially launches its Passenger Dignity Initiative, a comprehensive program encompassing revised training, clear accountability measures, simplified reporting procedures, and transparent consequences for violations. James, as the architect of the initiative, becomes something of an industry spokesperson on the topic of equitable customer treatment. In an interview with a major business publication, he's asked about what prompted such sweeping changes. We identified a significant gap between our stated values and our operational practices, he explains diplomatically. A particular incident brought these discrepancies into sharp focus, revealing how implicit bias can undermine even well-intentioned policies. Rather than addressing it as an isolated occurrence, we recognized an opportunity for systemic improvement. The journalist, sensing there's more to the story, presses further. Was this incident personal for you in some way? James considers his response carefully. Every incident of discrimination should be personal for all of us, regardless of who experiences it. The details of the specific case matter less than the lessons learned and changes implemented. What's important is that Skylink is now a better airline for all passengers because we confronted our failures directly and committed to meaningful change. The Passenger Dignity Initiative gradually attracts attention beyond the airline industry. Corporate consultants begin citing it as a model for translating equity values into operational practices. Business schools incorporate it into case studies on organizational change and inclusive customer service. Government regulators reference it when developing updated guidelines for passenger treatment in commercial aviation. 3 months after Flight 437, Maya receives an email from Michael Perez, the junior flight attendant who failed to intervene during the initial confrontation. Dr. Reynolds, he writes, I wanted to update you on my progress since our encounter. I've completed the comprehensive training program and have been working with our crew education department to develop additional modules on bystander intervention. Your handling of the situation that day continues to inform my approach to passenger interactions. Thank you for the difficult but necessary lesson. Maya shares the email with James, who confirms that Michael has indeed become an unexpectedly positive force within the company, advocating for change with the credibility of someone who learned its importance through personal failure. Sometimes the most effective advocates come from unexpected places, James observes during their weekly video call. His transformation seems genuine. I believe it is. Maya agrees. Not everyone gets defensive when confronted with their mistakes. Some people actually learn and grow. The broader impact of Flight 437 continues expanding in subtle but significant ways. Amanda Ramirez, the attorney who sat behind Maya and Amara, incorporates their experience into a legal seminar on documenting discrimination. David Rodriguez, the attorney across the aisle, references it when advising corporate clients on liability risks associated with biased customer service. Passengers who witness the confrontation carry its lessons into their own lives and workplaces. 4 months after the incident, Skylink's reformed practices receive industry recognition with an award for innovation in customer experience equity. James accepts it on behalf of the airline, his speech carefully acknowledging the uncomfortable truth that sometimes significant improvements arise from significant failures. Real change, he tells the audience of industry executives, rarely comes from success. It comes from confronting our failures honestly, listening to those who've been harmed by our systems, and committing to substantive rather than symbolic reforms. In the audience, several executives from competing airlines listen attentively, some already implementing their own versions of Skylink's initiatives, others still resistant but increasingly aware that the industry is evolving around them. The true measure of the changes, however, isn't found in awards or industry recognition. It's found in the experiences of passengers like Maya and Amara, travelers who now board planes with the reasonable expectation of dignity and respect, regardless of how they look or who they know. It's found in the transformed culture within Skylink, where crew members now understand that enforcing equitable treatment isn't optional or situational, but fundamental to their professional responsibilities. And perhaps most importantly, it's found in conversations like the one between Maya and Amara during their next flight together, 5 months after the incident that changed so much. Auntie Maya, Amara asks as they settle into their seats, do you think that lady ever realized she was wrong? Maya considers the question thoughtfully. I don't know. Some people never admit their mistakes, even to themselves. But her actions, however wrong, led to changes that helped thousands of other passengers. Sometimes good things can come from bad situations. Amara nods, absorbing this nuanced perspective. Then she turns to the window, her natural enthusiasm returning as the plane begins to taxi. Look, I can see the control tower. Did you know they have to coordinate hundreds of planes every day? As Amara shifts easily from contemplating injustice to celebrating aviation technology, Maya feels a surge of hope. The incident on Flight 437 didn't diminish her niece's wonder or curiosity. It didn't define her experience of travel. Instead, it became one thread in the complex tapestry of her understanding. Important, but not overwhelming. And as the plane lifts off, rising above Chicago toward new destinations, the changes sparked by their confrontation continue to take root and grow, creating a slightly better world for Amara and countless other passengers who will never know how a dispute over a window seat helped transform an airline and an industry. Section 9, Personal Resolution and Healing. So, how does it feel to be flying again? Layla Thompson asks, adjusting the video call frame to include both herself and Amara. The question is directed to Maya, who sits in her office at Chicago Children's Hospital, her surgical scrubs visible beneath her white coat. Surprisingly normal, Maya answers. Skylink's changes are noticeable, though subtle if you're not looking for them. The pre-boarding announcements, the consistent verification procedures, the visible reporting options, they've integrated them smoothly into the passenger experience. It's been 6 months since the incident on Flight 437, and life has largely returned to its regular rhythms. Maya has resumed her full surgical schedule. James continues implementing and refining Skylink's reform practices, and Amara, now approaching her 10th birthday, is thriving in fourth grade. Her natural curiosity and confidence intact despite the discrimination she faced. And you, Starlight, Maya asks her niece, how do you feel about flying now? Amara considers this thoughtfully, her expression serious beyond her years. I'm not scared, she decides. I just pay more attention to how people are treated. Dad says that's called being situationally aware. Layla smooths her daughter's hair with gentle fingers. That's right. Being aware without being afraid, that's the balance we're aiming for. As a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma recovery, Layla has been instrumental in helping Amara process the experience in age-appropriate ways, rather than allowing the incident to instill fear or suspicion. She's guided Amara toward empowerment and discernment, skills that will serve her throughout life. We've been practicing what we call observation without judgment, Layla explains to Maya. Noticing patterns of interaction without immediately labeling them as good or bad, it helps develop critical thinking without jumping to conclusions. That sounds like a skill many adults could benefit from, Maya observes with a smile. Most definitely, Layla agrees. Children often learn these adaptive strategies more easily than grown-ups. Their perspectives aren't as rigidly formed. Amara, momentarily bored with this adult conversation, interrupts. Auntie Maya, are you still coming for my birthday next week? Dad said you might have to work. I wouldn't miss it, Maya assures her. I've arranged coverage for my surgeries that day. 10 is a big milestone. We're having a science party, Amara announces excitedly. With real experiments, and Grandma and Grandpa are coming from California. I know, Maya says. I'm bringing some special medical equipment for one of the experiments, but that's all I'm going to tell you. The rest is a surprise. Amara's face lights up at this prospect. Her enthusiasm for scientific discovery, temporarily overshadowed by the incident 6 months ago, has returned full force, encouraged by her family's collective commitment to nurturing her natural interests rather than allowing one negative experience to define her relationship with the world. After the video call ends, Maya remains at her desk, reflecting on the journey of the past 6 months. The formal aspects of the Flight 437 incident have been resolved. Patricia Whitfield's 1-year flight ban continues in effect despite her initial threats of legal action. Catherine Wilson was terminated and has since found employment with a ground transportation company. Jessica Rivera completed her suspension and additional training, returning to flight duties with a noticeably changed approach to passenger interactions. Michael Perez has become an advocate for bias awareness within the airline. But beyond these official outcomes, the personal impact continues to evolve in more nuanced ways. For Maya, the incident reinforced lessons she'd learned throughout her life and career: the importance of documentation, the power of calm persistence, the effectiveness of strategic alliance building. As a Black woman in medicine, she developed these skills through necessity, facing subtle and overt discrimination throughout her education and professional advancement. The confrontation on Flight 437 simply applied these same strategies in a different context. In recent months, she's found herself more explicitly sharing these approaches with younger colleagues, particularly women of color beginning their medical careers. Without dwelling on the specifics of the airline incident, she discusses the methodology that has served her well in navigating biased environments. Document everything, build strategic alliances, know the official protocols better than those enforcing them. Remain professional but unyielding on matters of dignity. For James, the incident catalyzed a significant evolution in his leadership approach. While he'd always been committed to equity in principle, witnessing discrimination directed at his daughter and sister transformed abstract values into concrete imperatives. The reforms he's implemented at Skylink reflect this shift, moving beyond symbolic commitments to structural changes with measurable outcomes. In conversations with industry colleagues, James now emphasizes the business advantages of equitable treatment without apology or qualification. Treating all passengers with consistent dignity isn't just morally right, he explains in a recent industry panel. It's operationally efficient, legally prudent, and commercially advantageous. The data from our Passenger Dignity Initiative confirms this across multiple metrics. This framing, linking equity to business success, has proven particularly effective in engaging executives who might be unmoved by purely ethical arguments. By demonstrating that discrimination is both morally wrong and bad for business, James has found a compelling approach to advancing change beyond his own organization. For Amara, the experience has become integrated into her developing understanding of the world, not defining her perspective, but informing it in ways that her parents and aunt carefully monitor. With Layla's professional guidance, they've created space for Amara to process the incident through age-appropriate conversations, art, and even play scenarios where she practices different responses to unfair treatment. The goal, Layla explained to Maya during a private conversation, is to help her develop resilience without normalization. We want her to understand that discrimination is wrong and should be challenged, without expecting or accepting it as inevitable. This delicate balance, preparing Amara for the realities of the world while preserving her sense of possibility and wonder, represents the family's greatest success in transforming a potentially traumatic experience into an opportunity for growth and empowerment. The week before Amara's birthday, Maya finds herself on another Skylink flight, this time traveling alone for a medical conference in Boston. As she settles into her seat, she notices the subtle changes throughout the cabin. QR codes on seatbacks linking to the simplified incident reporting system. Flight attendants verifying each boarding pass with consistent attention regardless of the passenger's appearance. The now standard pre-boarding announcement about Skylink's commitment to respectful treatment for all travelers. These operational adjustments, implemented directly in response to her experience 6 months earlier, create a quiet sense of satisfaction. Without leveraging her connection to James, a fact she still hasn't confirmed or denied to anyone outside the family, she would have been just another passenger whose legitimate complaint might have been minimized or dismissed. Instead, her methodical documentation, calm persistence, and strategic alliance building created a record that couldn't be ignored, ultimately contributing to systemic changes that benefit countless passengers who will never know the specific incident that prompted these reforms. As the plane takes off, Maya recalls something her father told her years ago, when she encountered discrimination during her medical residency. The measure of our response isn't just how we protect ourselves in the moment, but how we create protection for others who will come after us. That intergenerational perspective, addressing immediate injustice while simultaneously working toward broader change, has guided Maya throughout her life. The Flight 437 incident, though painful, ultimately affirmed this approach by standing firm not just for herself and Amara, but for the principle of equal dignity for all passengers. She helped create meaningful, measurable improvements in how an entire airline treats its customers. In Boston, Maya presents her latest research on minimally invasive neurosurgical techniques for pediatric patients. During the Q&A session, a young resident asks about advocating for innovative approaches within established hospital hierarchies. Documentation is your strongest ally, Maya advises, drawing on lessons that apply far beyond medicine. Record outcomes meticulously. Build alliances with colleagues who share your concerns. Know the approval protocols better than those enforcing them. And above all, remain professionally persistent, neither confrontational nor compliant when matters of patient care are at stake. The resident nods, recognizing the wisdom in this methodical approach. What she doesn't know, what none of the assembled medical professionals know, is that Maya refined these strategies not just in hospital corridors, but also at 36,000 feet, turning a discriminatory encounter into a catalyst for change. The day of Amara's 10th birthday arrives with perfect early autumn weather in Chicago. Maya arrives at James and Layla's home carrying 2 packages, one containing the promised scientific equipment for the party experiments, the other holding a special gift she's selected with particular care. The house buzzes with the controlled chaos of 10-year-olds engaged in supervised scientific discovery. In the backyard, William helps groups of children create erupting volcanoes with baking soda and vinegar. In the kitchen, Margaret oversees the decoration of molecule-shaped cookies. In the living room, James demonstrates principles of aerodynamics with paper airplane designs of increasing complexity. Amara, wearing a lab coat personalized with her name and chief scientist embroidered on the pocket, moves between stations with the confidence of someone fully in her element. When she spots Maya, she rushes over for a hug. "Auntie Maya, did you bring the special equipment? What experiment are we going to do?" "I did," Maya confirms, holding up the larger package. "How about we set up in the dining room? I brought enough stethoscopes for everyone to listen to their own heartbeats, and special microphones that amplify the sound so the whole group can hear." Amara's eyes widen with excitement. Real stethoscopes like actual doctor ones. Actual doctor ones. Maya confirms. And I'll show you how to find different heart sounds and what they mean. As Amara eagerly helps unpack the equipment, Maya observes her niece's undiminished enthusiasm for discovery. The discrimination she faced on Flight 437 hasn't diminished her confidence or curiosity, a testament to both her innate resilience and her family's deliberate efforts to help her process the experience in healthy ways. Later, after the party winds down and the last guest departs, the family gathers in the living room for a quieter celebration. Margaret and William, Layla and James, Maya and Amara, 3 generations connected by blood, experience, and shared values. Time for family gifts, Layla announces, nodding to Maya. Maya retrieves the second package she brought, wrapped in paper decorated with galaxies and stars. This one's special, she tells Amara. Something to celebrate double digits. Amara opens it carefully, her expression shifting from curiosity to wonder as she reveals a leather-bound journal with her name embossed on the cover. Inside, the first page contains an inscription, "For Amara, on your 10th birthday." To record your observations, document your discoveries, and chart your journey through this complex and beautiful world. With love and admiration, Auntie Maya, it's a scientist's journal, Maya explains. For recording your observations and ideas, Amara runs her fingers over the smooth leather, the significance of the gift registering beyond its physical attributes. For documenting everything, she says quietly, looking up at her aunt with understanding beyond her years. Exactly, Maya confirms. Because careful observation is the foundation of all discovery, in science and in life. The moment carries layers of meaning that the adults recognize but don't explicitly name. This isn't just a journal for scientific notes. It's a tool for navigating the world, for recording injustice when it appears, for creating the kind of documentation that can drive change. I'll use it for all my important observations, Amara promises, already understanding the dual purpose of this gift. Later that evening, as Maya prepares to return to her own home, James walks her to her car. Thank you, he says simply. Not just for today, but for everything in these past 6 months. For how you handled the situation on the flight, for supporting Amara through the aftermath, for helping me focus the changes at Skylink where they'll have the most impact. That's what family does, Maya responds, echoing a phrase their parents often used during their own childhood. Yes, James agrees, but it's also who you are. You would have done the same for any child in that situation. Family or not, it's why you're such an extraordinary doctor. And aunt. Maya accepts the compliment with a nod, then changes the subject slightly. The changes at Skylink, they're making a difference. I noticed it on my flight to Boston last week. The consistency in how passengers are treated, the clear procedures, the visible reporting options. It's subtle but significant. That's the goal, James says. Changes that become so integrated into normal operations that eventually no one remembers they weren't always there. That's when you know reform has truly taken root. As Maya drives home, she reflects on this observation. The most effective changes often become invisible over time, embedded so thoroughly in systems and procedures that they eventually seem obvious, inevitable, natural. Perhaps that's the greatest success to emerge from the Flight 437 incident. Not just addressing that specific instance of discrimination, but establishing new patterns of operation that will eventually render such incidents less likely for all passengers, regardless of who they are or who they know. The personal healing, Amara's restored confidence, Maya's reinforced advocacy skills, James's evolved leadership approach, matters deeply. But the systemic change extends far beyond their family, creating ripples that will continue long after the specific details of that May afternoon have faded from memory. And as Maya pulls into her driveway, she finds satisfaction in this dual impact, the personal resolution for her family alongside broader improvements that benefit countless strangers. It's a pattern that has defined her approach to both medicine and life, addressing immediate needs while simultaneously working towards systemic change that prevents future harm. In Amara's new journal, still blank except for Maya's inscription, lies the potential for recording both scientific discoveries and lived experiences. Observations that might someday drive changes neither of them can yet imagine. The documentation that proved so crucial on Flight 437 continues in new forms, creating records that might become evidence, catalysts, foundations for further progress. That, perhaps, is the most enduring lesson from their experience, the power of bearing witness, keeping records, creating evidence that cannot be dismissed or denied. From the detailed notes Maya took on her phone during the confrontation to the journal, now in Amar's possession, documentation remains a tool for both personal empowerment and collective advancement, a lesson passed from one generation to the next, continuously refined and reapplied to new challenges. Section 10 Epilogue and Conclusion. Welcome aboard Skylink Airlines Flight 626 to San Francisco. My name is Michael Perez, and I'll be your lead flight attendant today. Maya recognizes the voice immediately, though she hasn't seen Michael since that fateful day 18 months ago. She's traveling alone this time, heading to California for a medical conference where she'll be presenting new research on pediatric neurosurgery techniques. As she settles into her window seat, 14A, by coincidence or perhaps subconscious choice, she observes the cabin with the heightened awareness that has become habitual since Flight 437. The changes implemented in response to that incident have become standard throughout Skylink's operations, from the pre-boarding announcements about respectful treatment to the consistent verification procedures to the visible reporting options available through QR codes and digital displays. What once seemed revolutionary has become routine, exactly as James hoped when he initiated the reforms. Michael continues his welcome announcement, unaware that Maya is among the passengers before we begin our boarding process. I'd like to remind everyone that Skylink Airlines is committed to providing a respectful environment for all passengers and crew members. We have zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior of any kind. If you witness or experience disrespectful treatment during your journey, please alert any crew member immediately. The message, now delivered on every Skylink flight, has become so standard that many frequent flyers barely register it. But for Maya, it carries special significance, tangible evidence of the systemic changes that emerge from personal adversity. As boarding continues, Maya notices Michael's interactions with passengers, his consistent courtesy regardless of their appearance or status, his careful verification of each boarding pass, his attentive assistance for those who need it. One in his manner suggests the hesitant junior crew member who failed to intervene during that confrontational boarding 18 months earlier. When he reaches her row, recognition dawns in his eyes. Dr. Reynolds, he says, his professional demeanor briefly giving way to genuine emotion. I wasn't expecting. It's good to see you. Hello, Michael, she responds calmly. How are you? I'm doing well, he says, regaining his composure. Very well. Actually, I've been promoted to lead flight attendant, and I'm also working with our training department on bystander intervention protocols. Congratulations, Maya says, genuinely pleased by this development. That's significant progress. Michael nods, aware of the understatement. Your experience, what happened that day, it changed a lot of things, not just for the airline, but for me personally. He glances down the aisle, conscious of his duties. I'd like to talk more if you have time during the flight. I'd be interested in hearing about the changes, Maya agrees. As Michael continues down the aisle, Maya reflects on this unexpected encounter. Of all the crew members involved in the Flight 437 incident, Michael was the only one who showed potential for genuine growth, recognizing his failure to intervene and expressing authentic regret rather than defensive justification. Later, during a quiet period after the meal service, Michael returns to Maya's row. Do you mind if I sit for a moment, he asks, indicating the empty seat beside her. Please. Maya gestures. Michael sits, his posture reflecting both professional confidence and personal humility. I've wanted to thank you properly, he begins. What happened that day, your response to it, changed the trajectory of my career and my understanding of responsibility. How so, Maya asks, genuinely curious about his perspective. I was new to the job, he explains, adjusting his uniform tie slightly. Still learning the formal procedures, still trying to navigate the informal hierarchies. When I saw how Jessica and Catherine were handling the situation with you and your niece, I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know how or if I should challenge them. He pauses, collecting his thoughts. After everything unfolded and the consequences became clear, I had a choice. I could blame others and distance myself from responsibility. or I could acknowledge my failure to act and learn from it. I chose the second path, partly because of how you handled the situation with such clear-eyed purpose and dignity. It showed me what real professionalism looks like. Maya nods, appreciating his candor. It's not easy to challenge established patterns, especially when you're new to an organization. No, Michael agrees, but that's not a sufficient excuse, which is why I've focused my subsequent work on developing protocols and training specifically for junior staff, helping them recognize situations where intervention is necessary regardless of their position in the hierarchy. He reaches into his pocket and removes a small card, which he offers to Maya. It contains bullet-pointed guidelines for bystander intervention in discriminatory situations, along with Skylink's official reporting procedures. Every crew member carries this now, he explains. We call it the Dignity Protocol. It's part of a broader program that your brother, McThompson, implemented across the airline. Maya studies the card, noting its clear, actionable guidance. This is impressive, she acknowledges. Practical tools rather than vague principles. Exactly, Michael agrees. The incident with you and your niece revealed how easily vague commitments to respectful treatment can fail without specific protocols and clear accountability. These cards are just one small part of a much larger transformation throughout the company. He hesitates, then adds more personally. How is your niece? I've thought about her often. How a child that young was exposed to such ugliness. Amara is thriving, Maya assures him. She's resilient, and she has a strong support system. The experience affected her, certainly, but it hasn't defined her. I'm glad to hear that, Michael says with evident relief. Their conversation is interrupted by the call button from another row. Michael stands, returning to his professional demeanor. Duty calls. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. To Reynolds, it means more than you know. As he attends to the other passenger, Maya reflects on this unexpected reconciliation. Michael's transformation from passive bystander to active advocate represents the best possible outcome from the Flight 437 incident. Not just procedural changes, but genuine personal growth and commitment to preventing similar situations in the future. When the flight lands in San Francisco, Maya finds a message waiting on her phone. Heard you're in town for a conference. Dinner with us tonight. Amara has news she's bursting to share. James. She smiles, typing a quick acceptance before collecting her luggage. The prospect of seeing her brother, sister-in-law, and niece adds a pleasant dimension to her professional trip. That evening, at James and Layla's San Francisco apartment, Maya is greeted by an exuberant Amara, now 11 and a half, her enthusiasm for life undiminished by past experiences. Auntie Maya, guess what my science project about unconscious bias in medical diagnosis won the regional competition. I'm going to nationals in Washington. Dishwas. Maya hugs her niece tightly, pride surging through her. That's amazing. Amara, tell me all about your project. Over dinner, Amara explains her research, a sophisticated analysis of how doctors' unconscious biases affect their diagnostic decisions, particularly for patients from marginalized groups. She's created a simulation that healthcare providers can use to identify and address their own biases before they impact patient care. I got the idea after what happened on the plane, Amara explains matter-of-factly. I started thinking about how people make assumptions based on what they see, not what's actually true, and how that can cause serious problems in important situations like medical care. The adults exchange glances, impressed by Amara's ability to transform a painful personal experience into constructive investigation, yet still wistful that such wisdom had to come from direct exposure to discrimination. The judges were incredibly impressed, Layla reports proudly, especially when they realize she's only in 6th grade. The project demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of both the psychological and practical aspects of bias. That doesn't surprise me at all, Maya says, smiling at her niece. Amara has always been exceptionally perceptive about human behavior. After dinner, while Layla helps Amara prepare for bed, James and Maya step onto the balcony overlooking the city lights. The Golden Gate Bridge is visible in the distance, its iconic span illuminated against the night sky. I saw Michael Perez on my flight today, Maya tells her brother. He's become quite the advocate for change within Skylink. James nods. He's one of our success stories, When people take responsibility for their actions or inactions and commit to growth, remarkable transformations are possible. And the broader changes, Maya asks, have they been sustained? More than sustained, James confirms. They've expanded. What began as emergency responses to a specific incident have evolved into comprehensive protocols integrated throughout our operations. Discriminatory complaints are down 78% compared to pre-incident levels. Customer satisfaction is up across all demographic categories. On-time performance has improved by consistently applying the same rules to everyone. He smiles slightly. Turns out treating all passengers with equal dignity isn't just the right thing to do ethically. It's operationally efficient. The business case for justice, Maya remarks, echoing their conversation from months earlier. Exactly, James agrees. And because we can demonstrate these tangible benefits, the changes are likely to outlast any particular leadership team, including mine. They've become embedded in how we do business, not just aspirational statements in a corporate handbook. And Patricia Whitfield, Maya asks, curious about the antagonist whose actions catalyzed so much change. Her one-year ban expired 6 months ago, James reports. She hasn't attempted to fly with us since. As far as I know, her husband, however, sent a private letter of apology shortly after the incident. Apparently, he was horrified when he saw the video evidence of her behavior. Maya nods, unsurprised. And the crew members, Catherine and Jessica. Catherine has moved on to another industry entirely. Jessica completed her suspension and required training, then returned to flight duties. She's actually become quite proactive in implementing our reform protocols. Another example of someone who chose growth over defensiveness when confronted with her mistakes. Their conversation is interrupted by Layla, who joins them on the balcony. Amara wants to say goodnight to you both before she falls asleep. She's exhausted, but too excited about her project to settle down easily. In Amara's room, decorated with a mixture of scientific posters and art projects, she sits up in bed, surrounded by books about medicine, psychology, and social science, her current obsessions. Auntie Maya, she says as they enter, do you think my project could actually help doctors someday, like really help them treat patients better? Absolutely. Maya answers without hesitation. Understanding our biases is the first step to overcoming them. The simulation you've created could be a valuable tool for medical training. That's what I want, Amara declares, her expression serious beyond her years. I want to help make things better, not just complain when they're wrong. The statement, simple yet profound, captures the philosophy that has guided their family's response to the Flight 437 incident from the beginning, acknowledging injustice while actively working toward constructive change. You already are making things better, James assures his daughter. Your project, your questions, your willingness to look at difficult topics, these all contribute to positive change. After Amara falls asleep, the adults return to the living room, their conversation turning to broader reflections on the incident that connected them 18 months earlier and its ongoing ripple effects. Sometimes I think about parallel universes, Maya muses. In one, I didn't stand firm that day. I moved Amara to another seat to avoid conflict, accepting the path of least resistance. That version of events wouldn't have triggered any of the changes that followed. But that's not who you are, Layla points out. You've never been someone who chooses easy compliance over justified resistance. True, Maya acknowledges. But I also think about the countless passengers who face similar situations without the advantages we had. The legal knowledge, the documentation skills, the professional credentials, and of course, the family connection to airline leadership. James nods, understanding her point, which is precisely why the systemic changes matter so much. They provide protection for everyone, not just those with special knowledge or connections. Exactly, Maya agrees. The incident was personal for us, but the reforms benefit thousands of people we'll never meet. Passengers who board planes without wondering if they'll be treated with basic dignity, crew members who now have clear protocols for addressing discrimination, an entire organization that functions more effectively because it treats everyone consistently. This broader impact, the transformation of a painful personal experience into constructive systemic change, represents the most meaningful resolution of the Flight 437 incident. Beyond the immediate consequences for specific individuals, beyond the healing within their family, lies this wider ripple effect that continues expanding through time. The window seat that Patricia Whitfield demanded for her son 18 months ago became, unexpectedly, a focal point for meaningful change, proving once again that sometimes the most significant transformations begin with simply refusing to move when dignity and fairness are at stake. And somewhere in the skies above America, flights continue with passengers seated according to their assigned tickets, crew members following clear protocols for equitable treatment, and a corporate culture gradually evolving toward justice, not just as an abstract value, but as an operational standard. This is how progress happens, not through grand gestures or sweeping declarations, but through standing firm in specific moments, documenting what occurs, building strategic alliances, and transforming individual incidents into catalysts for systemic change. For everyone involved in Flight 437, the journey continues, altered by that pivotal confrontation, but not defined by it. Maya returns to her pediatric neurosurgery practice. James implements further refinements to Skylink's operations. Layla continues her clinical psychology work, and Amara pursues her scientific investigations with undiminished curiosity and growing purpose. The incident becomes part of their shared history, significant but not overwhelming, influential but not limiting. And in its aftermath, they find not just personal resolution, but the satisfaction of contributing to improvements that extend far beyond themselves, changes that make travel just a little more dignified, a little more equitable, a little more just for everyone who books a window seat and expects to actually sit in it. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful narratives of courage, dignity, and systemic change. Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination in travel or other public spaces? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters in this ongoing conversation about dignity and justice. Remember that documentation is power. The next time you witness unfair treatment, consider safely recording what you see. Your evidence could be the catalyst for meaningful change that benefits countless others. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that standing firm with dignity can transform not just individual experiences, but entire systems. Together, we can create a world where respect isn't determined by privilege, but guaranteed as a right for all.